Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
The book, because can you all hear all right?
I can hear perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool.
I'm good.
Love it.
All right. So we don't do any openings here. We just go.
Cool.
So, Mike, I appreciate you doing this.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Rocco, it's unusual to see you in that chair.
This is the second time in this
You
chair.
sat over.
Yeah.
Have you sat over here yet?
I have not. That's
I
next
almost
time.
put you over here today, but I had this thing about, like, I like to be able to see both of my guests, you know.
Yeah.
So
Next
and
time.
I don't trust when Fred's over here, so I'm kind of getting side eye. That's why I've been putting Freddie over where you are now.
I get it, man. I get it completely, man. Completely understand. I like the seat now.
Right on. So a lot I want to talk about today, and I want to do some free riffing.
Yeah.
You know, we're all kind of like I think I'm sitting here today with two philosophically minded individuals, and I find that kind of person doesn't come into my sphere very often today, in terms of people that actually put, I don't know, a lot of thought into what they actually believe and they're in tune with it. I think you have a lot of people that believe that that's how they live and they're righteous and they joined a team and they're going to die on that hill and all that shit, but being pragmatic is a thing, and I see both of that in both of you. So now that I've complimented them beyond words, Mike, give us some background on you. The 2-second spiel.
Oh, I'm not from Pittsburgh.
I know.
Number one. So no, I get the honor is to be here to not be a Pittsburghian. Is that what you are, Pittsburghian?
We can say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pittsburghers.
Yeah.
We're Pittsburghers.
Pittsburghers.
Yeah, pull this closer to you, buddy. I need you to maybe just about three. No. You did it right. You're perfect.
Okay, good. Perfect. Yeah. So I'm not from Pittsburgh. I'm from Chicago.
Right.
I'm just
Mundelein, Illinois?
Yeah, I know where Mundelein is.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there.
Did you?
Washburn Guitars was up there. And
okay.
They just recently tore the building down. Heartbreaking, but
yeah. A lot of golf courses up there now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is that area?
That's
nice.
That's Lake
that's
County.
north, right?
It's north.
That's
yeah.
north.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not by. I got lost by Kaminsky Park. Got a little dicey down there. Trying to find gas one night.
That's down by where I'm from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
So yeah, no, I'm just I'm a remarkably ordinary kind of average dude. And,
remarkably ordinary.
Yeah, extraordinarily ordinary, probably.
Extraordinarily ordinary.
You're selling yourself short a little bit, man. But go on.
But yeah, So I'm from Berwyn, Illinois.
Okay.
But I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, so that was cool. But I'm just a guy who has had the privilege and the honor and the opportunity to do a number of different cool things, and I've met a number of just remarkable people.
Right.
And I've had a pretty cool journey.
Right.
And not always easy, and I've come out on this other end, and now I work as an executive coach and an organizational consultant, and mostly what my commitment is helping guys, dudes, men, leaders, really understand the power of who they are, and not only that, the power of what's possible from who they are.
Got it.
Right? And so that's how I spend my days,
What's your history in regards to business? I mean, give some background on your career history.
I started out as a tool and die maker, and then I got into engineering. I was a CNC programmer like a million years ago, ran manufacturing facilities, got into sales, was a sales leader for a while, ran a couple of organizations, left when manufacturing left America, got into construction.
Did it ever come back? I never knew it returned. Did it return?
Yeah. Not really.
I don't know if it has. There's an opportunity for it to return now, but it hasn't. Got into construction and got really lucky in construction and did some really cool things and did that, and then had a personal kind of road to Damascus moment and sold my business and got into coaching. And so that's kind of the real short synopsis of it all. But that's kind of what I've done. I've run a couple businesses. I've never ran any really big ones. I was mostly in the business development side.
What was the compelling reason for you to make the turn to coaching? What led you there?
I first of all, I couldn't do corporate anymore. I'm the least corporate guy in the world, right? And I'd done it.
You might be sitting across from the most least corporate person.
Dude, I don't know.
I'll challenge you on that.
Yeah, I think
Kind of in that ballpark too a little bit.
I think both of us together are have similar journeys.
Right
in that.
on.
And,
right on.
But yeah, so I was trying to keep doing it, and I just I can't do this anymore. And then I met someone who was a coach.
Okay.
And I was really intrigued by the lifestyle.
Okay.
And I asked if I could do coaching while I rode my motorcycle across the country, right? And they said, yeah. And I'm like, done, I'm in. And what was really interesting, about 8 months into the training, I started getting CEOs as clients.
Right on.
And so all of a sudden I went from not being in corporate America to actually, supporting and getting to know these guys at a different level. And what it gave me was this really cool perspective and compassion for these guys on top, who I would challenge all the time and almost excoriate and fight with, when I was in corporate America, because I was viewing it through my own perspective.
Right.
And it really gave me this really cool kind of understanding and viewpoint of the way business works, and also the way people operate. And what I really got, my training was engineering, so I was all about numbers and spreadsheets. And what I really started seeing was what business is really about is relationships and people. But I understand the business part of it, And so what I learned is that you can look at the relationships and how they're working, and then apply the spreadsheets and the numbers to it to see if you're getting the results you want.
Okay.
But then there's like behaviors that need to be instilled to get the results you want. It's just not, downsizing or moving your company to India or any of that, There's a lot of things that can happen. So I've been blessed for the last, 6 years. I've been doing a lot of cultural transformation. I hate the word transformation, by the way, but cultural work, cultural alignment work, actually.
Okay.
Inside organizations. So people are actually doing the things they say they want to do.
Right.
So that's been pretty cool.
The idea of doing a coach, because I'm a naturally very skeptical person.
That's awesome.
Background.
You should be. Stay that way.
It can be. Sometimes it can be very annoying, not only to myself, but to everyone else around me. I think
annoying is an incredibly underrated skill set. I think it.
You think?
Oh yeah, man. Because here's what happens with annoying. Annoying instantly challenges the status quo. If you're annoyed, you're like, what's going on over there?
Okay.
It generates curiosity.
So you delineate between annoying and inquisitive, right?
You're
okay with them being the same thing.
I'm real okay with it being the same thing. Yeah.
My skepticism comes from, I had a father who was a counselor. He was involved in the Scouts and did some counseling, and that was a weird dynamic as a young person growing up, right?
Yeah.
Because you see your father in one light, and then you see him as a counselor too. So, but as I went into life, whether it was Anthony Robbins in the beginning, and then it was Les Brown, and then it was Harvey McKay, all that good stuff, I was ingesting all I could get a hold of. But there always seemed to be, I don't know how to articulate it maybe, but there never seemed to be a lot of authenticity with what I would see. So my question to you would be, how do you feel the same, and then how do you work to differentiate yourself?
I don't do anything to differentiate myself but be me. Okay. Like, I don't have it as a target list item. Okay. I think what you bring up is real. It's a real thing. One of the challenges of coaching or counseling or being a support to anybody, right, is the absence of understanding on how to really do it. Okay. So first of all, most of the people I coach are just world-class badasses, right? So they're tough dudes that take no shit from anyone, okay?
Right.
And they are skeptical. By nature, they're skeptical, okay? And they also spend a lot of time alone because of the skepticism. So there's a lot of they work hard.
Okay.
So one of the things that happens is being a coach or being a counselor or being anyone who's supporting another person is it's an odd business, because you've got to be present to, am I hitting my numbers? Am I doing this? You got to run the business part of it, right? But the work you're doing, I don't provide anything for my clients other than a space for them to work through the things they need to work through and create the space for them to discover who they are.
Right.
I'm not giving them answers.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, and Harvey McKay is a great example. Man, I love that guy. I read every one of his books. I mean, the guy was a sales master, genius. Harvey McKay was an exceptionally talented dude who knew how to generate and drive results, and he had a process for it. I think there's one thing for handing someone a process and a completely different thing with giving someone the answers, right?
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
So I think that's it. And the trick back, not enough coaches do their own work continuously. Like if you're in this business being a coach, you better do the work every single day. Like every day. I've got a ritual I go through every morning, regardless of what it is. And I can't even get started till I get that done.
Right.
Because otherwise I'm a fraud.
Yeah, it's about walking the walk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's and that's what I mean by authenticity. And the skepticism comes from seeing, and this is coming from a capitalist, but seeing the hucksterism involved with that industry.
There is. And here's the problem. The guys that get rewarded are the ones who are the best salespeople, not the best coaches.
Right.
That's the biggest challenge. So,
that's exactly right.
And then the other thing that's going on, which is the complete off-the-rails bullshit of it all, is what they're all trying to do is then capitalize on this online training nonsense.
Right.
So I'm going to create a training program so you can become authentic. That's such bullshit.
Yeah.
The only way you can become authentic is go get some on you.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I mean, you got to go and trial by error and understand who you are, because there's 7.3 billion people in the world. So there's 7.3 billion different expressions of authenticity. I can't tell you how to be authentic.
Right.
All I can do is create the space and maybe ask a few questions and laugh a little bit as we go through the process for you to discover for yourself.
Right.
That's all I can do.
Yeah. It seems like they've turned the idea of helping people that believe they're confused into a process that then they want to scale through the web simply for the reason of the almighty dollar. That's it.
Exactly right.
I think
with a lot of them.
I think there's one other step other than the almighty dollar. The dollars are definitely part of it, but there's this weird ethos that's out there.
Okay.
And there's this ethos that says I shouldn't have to work. Like if I only work 10 hours a week and I'm making $4,000 a week, that's success.
Well, you're absolutely right. That lie has been sold to the American public packaged. It started actually on late night television and infomercials, I believe, in the 70s and the 80s with the real estate get rich quick Carlson Sheets.
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But I think that and that was I think, but you see it today where the kids are being bombarded because on their Instagram feeds, everything is, I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to show you that, or look at my cars, or look at all the books I've read, and I'm a super genius, and you know, I can take. There was an ad. I think the gentleman passed away, but there was a young kid that was doing it in the 90s. He was talking about placing little classified ads.
I remember those.
What was it?
That was hilarious,
David
man.
something.
I remember
I think he ended up going to jail or something. I don't know. But nothing is new. It's just the vehicle they're using to market. It's new now.
Gotta do the fucking work.
But
that's it, man.
It's
you gotta do the work.
Yeah.
Everything's a bitch. So one of the big breakthroughs, one of the ways I got here too, is I had a 2.5, almost 3 year journey of being a pretty devout Buddhist. Right?
Oh, this is gonna be fascinating.
So
fantastic.
Out of being a Buddhist, you know, I thought Buddhism was
you are a former Buddhist. Correct?
Well, I still have the Buddhist beliefs. I don't practice it anymore.
Okay.
You know, I don't go to the temple. You know, I don't meditate daily. I don't do any of that anymore.
Okay.
You know, but I did. You know, and it was great, and I got like a ton from it. And one of the things I got is that this thing we call life is intended to be a bitch. The resistance that life provides for us is the gift of it, and provides the grit for us to really kind of, you know, develop and see who we really are.
Is that the essence of the yin and the yang?
Yeah. And so it's just from that. And so all the bitching and whining, complaining that everyone does is just nonsense. They're missing out on the gold. You know, it's like getting a pizza and taking off the goodies and just eating the crust and going, oh, that's what I wanted.
But don't you think, me being the skeptic, that humans are just lazy?
No. I think
you don't believe
I don't think humans are lazy. I think humans are scared shitless.
Okay.
And the scared shitless is what allows them to sit in their basements for 12 months and justify not working, and out of being fearful, they don't understand what courage is. All courage is taking action in the face of fear. It's not eliminating fear. So all this BS that we're dealing with, right, is trying to remove fear, when in fact, fear is Zig Ziglar, you know, fear, false evidence appearing real, right? You know, we don't know what fear is, but just walk through it. I'm sure I mean, I'm sure like Rocco's like a world-class badass, right? And I'm sure he goes into situations where he doesn't have a clue.
Plenty of them. Yeah.
And there's that element of fear, but what he's mastered is courage, which is taking action in face of the fear, turning off the noise, and living into his commitment.
Yeah.
That's what makes this guy such a badass.
I will definitely agree with you on that.
You know? And so that's what's missing. You know? That's so we're honoring our fear and not honoring our commitment.
But I do think, to your point, I do think there's a combination. I do think people are lazy, and I do think fear creates more laziness.
Well, yeah.
So I think we've talked about, you know, I do believe a lot of human beings.
Fear normalizes laziness.
Correct.
Yes,
Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Maybe.
That's a better way of putting it.
And then there's the narrative that celebrates the laziness. And then we create structures. I mean, people talk about structural racism. There's structural laziness.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
In the unemployment compensation that went on, and in the, you know, paying people for children, and all of the different handouts and social supports.
Yeah, and the construct is that we reward. America's a funny place because there's been decades and decades of rewarding people for poor performance. In a corporate environment, if you did your work the way that the government rewards you for living, but if you did your work that way, you wouldn't survive in any company. You would not be rewarded for poor performance in the business place.
Right.
But we do it in life.
But here's what's happening, I think, in the business space. People are getting, I don't want to say rewarded, but they're sustaining with mediocrity.
Yeah.
Because there's now these, you can't say certain things, you can't do certain things, you can't, because for the fear of all this other noise out there that's going to cancel the corporation or cancel this. So they're now allowing mediocrity to infiltrate an entire corporate structure that now is causing businesses to just remain this. That's why you're not seeing as much innovation.
So
exactly,
is the bigger question then, as a species, are we becoming more accepting of mediocrity? Are we becoming more accepting of laziness? And if we are becoming more accepting of it as a whole, as a species, then you can almost make the argument that maybe we all are internally lazy, and it takes a lot of effort and drive to do anything.
I don't know. I think what I see is, again, laziness is, there's a...
Well, what's your definition of laziness?
Lack of ambition, right?
Okay.
So I think what's happened is we've become a culture that's very comfortable.
Yes,
and
I would agree.
Really, really, like, comfort is our drug, man, you know?
Yeah.
And so
but hasn't it always been, you don't think?
All right, so we're
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm an asshole.
No, you're not,
This is what I do.
I think here's what's happened. I think we viewed... So you go back, like, to the Depression, okay? And, you know, people are fighting for survival. And so if you would achieve a level of comfort, that was some symbol of success.
But you had to work for comfort.
Yeah. And you think of the growth of the suburbs, right? And the Levittstown, New York, and the Downers Grove, Illinois, and places like that very comfortable. I live in one of the most comfortable suburbs in America. It's labeled as it, right? So that was something to strive for and something to go for, right? So you would work to become comfortable, you would work to become safe, you would work to become, you know, for convenience, because life was a bitch, right? The whole Buddhist thing.
Okay.
But now we've got it that comfort is a standard.
Good point.
Okay.
Very good point.
Absolutely.
And you're entitled to be comfortable.
Well, that was the second part of it.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's a right for you to have
fucking bullshit.
Well, it's interpreted. It's a right
bullshit.
to be. You have the right to err, and you have the right to have a certain level of comfort be given to you because you just exist.
Right.
And that is something that is dangerous to teach to children.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Here's I think what happens, right? We all have these ideals and these visions of what the future could look like if we would strive and fulfill this ideal, right? I'm going to use a very controversial idea, okay?
Okay.
And this will get me canceled from probably half your listeners, but let's look at the women's movement, okay? So if you go back into the late 60s and early 70s, right? Women were paid about 60 cents on the dollar for every man, for what men were doing, right? And that's where the whole women's liberation thing came from, was to create economic equality,
Yes.
right? So
Which we can agree is the right thing.
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
inarguable, you know? And I would even go, you know, social equality or whatever version of equality. There should be no delineation between women and men. I mean, as far as the rights go, you know, delivering rights, okay? Fast forward, now we're into 2020, and let's look at the numbers. And when you look at the numbers of women executives, okay, and first of all, women management positions in corporate America today, women have 58% of the management positions. 58%, that's more than half, okay? And they're compensated 98 cents to the dollar of every man, okay? So that's almost equality. And I'm going to assert the reason it's not is because there's still some dudes out there that are grandfathered in, that are like 75 years old, that are pulling out big bank, maybe not making the same level contribution, but they created a foundation, so they're getting paid, right?
Yeah.
So we've achieved economic and whatever you would career equality,
Parity, maybe.
parity, equality, whatever. We've achieved the objective, okay? So when you achieve the objective and you've been successful, you're on a roll, right? Now what? What's the next level look like? It's not about equality anymore. It's about power.
Right.
Okay, so then you fast forward the same thing. You achieve this level of comfort. We've created a standard of living in this country that's awesome. We've achieved this level of comfort. Instead of having it to be something to strive for, it's now entitled. So when we get to these goals, we have not done a good recreating of the future. What can the future look like? We become, anybody who doesn't have this is like discriminated against, which is not true.
Right. There's a phrase that Rocco and I bounce around on this show quite often, and it's critical thinking.
Yeah.
And it takes a new skill level in the year 2021 to look past headlines. Now, in the 70s, I'm thinking my parents could hear a headline and pretty much, dismiss it or ingest it or move past it, because that's what people did then.
Yeah.
Right.
But now we govern our lives by just the headlines we see, and it sends us on these big directional changes. My point is, when you talk there a moment about statistics, you could have all the statistics to prove a point in this society. That statistics could come from, let's say, I don't know, non-political think tanks. They could come from scientific databases. The consensus could agree these are not driven by anything other than pure facts.
Right.
You could lay that in front of people, and yet you can't ever get them to get to the point to even look at them because the narrative that might be in front of that words are so powerful, and they're so intellectually lazy by choice, not genetically, that they'll never get to those facts. And that is what's ruling, in my opinion, a lot of the dysfunction now. And I don't have a recommendation as to how to fix that. I just don't. I don't get it.
Well, to your point, one, people don't want to think critically. It's hard work. I think critically every day. Like I'm a lawyer. That's what we do. Like I have to critically think 12 hours a fucking day, and my brain hurts every day. But I do it. That's part of what my profession is. But the second piece is people, once they pick the team, they don't want to be wrong. So critically, in looking at something that could disband their mental construct or that framework they've created, they don't want to do it because then it calls into question other things. And that's where I think and that comes back to your point about fear, right?
Yep.
If you look at something, if I take a position and now there's data that, discredits my position.
Right.
And I'm like, oh shit, what other positions do I have that could be discredited? So I just want to turn a blind eye. I don't want to look, because it's going to call into question not just that one thing, but many things. And that comes back to that fear. We start looking at things from a different perspective. People become fearful and they just put their head in the sand. Like, nope, my position is my position. I have facts to support it. Even if those facts have been disproven, that's what they do, because it's the fear of being wrong. It's the fear of not belonging to that team anymore. It's the fear of just questioning themselves. I think there's a lot of levels to this. And it's completely, to your point, like, we have to right the ship in this country. We need more critical thinkers. We need to just look at everything.
Yeah.
Critically think, look at it and say, what is actually wrong? Because we talk about a lot of shit in this country being wrong, but go live somewhere else. Like, go somewhere else. You'll see how fucking good we have it. Like, I've been across the world. I've been to some shitty places. There's nowhere else I want to live. Even with all the things that are bad in this country, the political situation, everything, like, there's no other place I want to be.
Agreed.
And we need to get people more to believe like that, I think.
Yeah, Rocco, what you're pointing to is so important, man, is... There's a mentor I have. Right?
Mm-hmm.
His name is Werner Erhard, and he's got this phrase called transformation begins with a powerful relationship to what's so, like dealing with objective reality.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so there's a lot of people that aren't dealing with objective reality. One of the, like that chart I put up that you've seen a million times, right? So have you seen that movie Social Dilemma?
I have not seen it.
Okay. They've got this cool chart. It's Moore's Law. It talks about the amount of information that comes on, right? Well, anyway, this is a shameful plug for my book.
We're going to get to your book. Let's do it now.
But there's a chart on page 301, right?
Right.
And what it does, what it looks like, it's the growth of information and data and noise in the system, okay? And it goes out of hand. And then there's also another line that crosses over that talks about the human ability to consume information and to manage data, okay? Like our intellectual capacity, and this is all based on neuroscience. I don't know when we've crossed over. I can make an assertion it was somewhere like 2004, 2005, something like that, with the growth of social media. But we have crossed over. When you cross over, when there's more data than you can actually take in, you're going to be in an instant state of overwhelm. And what overwhelm leads to is chaos and confusion and really fear.
No question.
So the fear is like, that's the what so condition we're living in is a culture of chaos, confusion, fear, and overload. Okay? So, and then that fear gets them like, everyone's got a different way of survival, right? Now, fear for someone who's, let's just say, more alpha male, for lack of a better word, is like a throwdown, like, like he was talking about with his daughter. If someone would, be a challenge to my daughter, heaven help that guy, right? Yeah. So that's one way of dealing with it. Someone who's not an alpha male, okay? Someone who doesn't have that fear trigger them and ignite that kind of warrior in them, okay? Which are other people, or aren't aligned with an alpha male, are going to then get, much more introverted or pulled back and seek protection and seek safety, right? So that's kind of what's going on. And the best way to not get killed is to remain in the status quo. You'll die from atrophy, but you're not going to get eaten immediately by the lion, right? You're going to climb the tree, you're going to jump in the hole, you're going to do that. This is all primal, man. Yeah. And so what we got to do, what's really needed is this awareness of where we're at. We've got to start having these conversations about where we're really at culturally, and then we got to start doing the work. And the work there is to do, especially for dudes, is to become self-aware, to understand, to be in relationship with yourself more so than anyone else, and get who you are. Yeah. Because when you get who you are, then all of a sudden, then you can actually be in relationship with someone else.
I am well on record of saying, and I believe this to my core, that people in all walks of life, from every demographic, a good amount of people, day in, day out, go through this life with no semblance of personal philosophy, and they don't really have an understanding of what they even believe internally. They don't actually know what they believe. And when you don't know, if you're not grounded, it can change over time. Your philosophy can adapt with society, but if you don't have something that grounds you, I don't know how you function. And I think there's a lot of people that don't have a fucking clue what they believe and believe.
You function in survival, right?
Yeah, and it's easy. That's the comfort, though.
Yeah.
Think about it.
It is.
Like I have a couple friends, and I'm not going to name them, but I know that they don't have philosophies on anything or take a position on anything, and they're just good being comfortable. Like their life is just, I'm good. Like, I don't need to take a position. Like, if you ask them, like, what do you truly believe in? Like, what do you stand for as a man or a woman? They wouldn't have an answer. Like, I'm good. Like, my life. And so it's people seek that comfort, because doing that, like, figuring out what you stand for, figuring out who you are, that's the hard, ugly work that people have to do.
Well, they take, my understanding, for people that refuse to, or don't want to put the effort in to become grounded and principled, they will use the other word, which is also a part of my life, which is indifference, and they will bastardize that word and into making it convenient for them to assume that word means lazy, right?
Yeah.
And indifference does not mean lazy.
Yeah, right.
Indifference actually takes work to be indifferent.
Yep.
Cognitively indifferent, as we've talked about this many times, is a choice.
No,
but it comes from an area of sophistication and intelligence. It doesn't come from apathy,
right,
or laziness.
Yeah. No, indifference is a great word, man. I heard you use it on your show because to get ready to come here, I wanted to get a handle on how cool the studio is. Number one,
it's a zoo
but really,
in here.
What goes on here and what's that about? And
I don't even know what goes on here.
what goes on? I'll tell you what goes on here, man. I'll tell you exactly what goes on here. So what happens is you have, based in neuroscience, you've got a situation where people come in and have no fucking clue what's going to go on, right? And they step through. You create this great space where people can step through. There's no concern about, am I going to look like a dope or an idiot or anything like that. So they step through the gate of courage, and you get into engagement instantly.
I think so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then from engagement, what actually happens then is you can progress to a level of innovation where the new ideas come into critical thinking gets developed.
Yep.
And what's really possible, and I think it's happened a few times, it happened on one of the shows you were, you get to that level of synchronicity that Michael talked about, right? Yeah. Where there becomes this flow state.
Right.
And that's what goes on here. That's why this thing gets, and you're like, why do people listen? Because that's,
I don't know.
because of that though, dude.
Yeah.
Truth.
But it isn't rocket science.
No, dude,
to
it's
deviate
humanity.
a little bit, it's just, this is I've told Rocco, even before we really got going with this whole thing, I'm doing this to slow down my life, have real conversations, because they were technologically not possible,
right?
And I found myself becoming part of the machine in the way I communicate, and that I can't do that. Yeah. So the only way I could slow myself down was having wonderful conversations, and this just seemed like a format to really do that. And that's, I think that's, we're doing here something, even if you don't dive in deep, you just look at it. That's not what most people are doing every day. They're not sitting down and talking with people.
No,
dude.
Not at all.
On the most base level, what we're doing is there's three dudes like sharing space with one another and actually communicating and being in a relationship.
Right.
That's the most base level. That doesn't happen.
Right.
You get into some of the heavier shit and the deeper stuff, and if someone's into that, they can be into it. But really, what it is just the foundation of what relationships about.
Yeah.
Which is listening to one another.
Yeah.
And respecting and honoring.
Yeah.
Yeah. The overload is a big thing with me, and I couldn't articulate that, but I felt like 2015, 16, in my realtor practice every day and and I didn't have this then, but I felt every day was like rushing from point A to point B, getting back to people the moment they contacted me, feeling a constant state of urgency.
Yeah.
Then I thought maybe something's wrong, or maybe I'm just an anxious person, but everyone I spoke to, a lot of people were going through the same thing, that level of, that state of urgency all day. It's not a good way to live.
No, look at the anxiety that's going on in the world today. Everybody's, it's everywhere. you know. And then there's always these phony ways of like dealing with it. What Rocco said is the only way I've found to actually deal with it, which is to create that sense of purpose or vision or why am I here, you know, and then be true to that, and then turn out the noise.
You don't think that a lot of the public is simply lazy in thought? I mean, I think they are, because I see the most intellectually insulting shit on the television. All as I walk past the TV in my home all the time, but I know a good part of our population is captivated, and news included. News probably at the forefront, where they're being told what to think, and they go there willingly. This must be reality.
Well,
and they start maneuvering their life based upon what talking head X, Y, or Z just told them, which is insane to me.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
That is where, in my opinion, the laziness comes in, because and I'll use the pandemic as an example, not to get into that discussion, but
we absolutely can get into that discussion.
But what I've learned through all of that, there were people in my life that intellectually I respected, but then as you go through this health crisis, we'll call it, people just had their intellectual curiosity went away, and they just said, we have to believe this. But why? But why? Well, because they said so. Well, who said so? Well, this person. Well, how do they know? Well, and it's just like no one wanted to do that next level looking. I'm fine what you believe in, whether you believe in mask, no masks, vax, no vax. I don't care.
Right.
Formulate that opinion yourself.
Right.
Don't do it. Yeah, and they'll say, well, but we're listening to the health experts. But we say that, but yet if health experts disagree with the health experts you believe, those are not health experts. So
it's an echo chamber.
Well, that's the thing, and
they seek the echo chamber,
right? And people aren't willing to question, and that's the problem. I think it comes down to laziness, because questioning is hard.
See, there's comfort in the echo chamber. I believe there's no question that most Americans know inside. They do. Where they lean. It may not be hard either way, but they know, and they're going to seek out the news source that makes them feel the least scared and the most comfortable.
Yes.
The inside, they're seeking the titillation, and they want to see the train wreck, but they want to feel comfortable that they're being told by their people.
Yeah.
They won't admit that to you, but I'm telling you, if you took a diehard Republican, conservative person and asked them for a couple hours to sit and watch, maybe a liberal source of news, CNN, whatever, most won't do it.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Absolutely.
They won't do it out of principle. It's not out of principle. If you had principles, you'd be seeking all sources and making up your own mind. But that just takes work. See, I hate to be a sarcastic asshole, but that is the gist of what I see. You are not, most people, not you or you, most people that I encounter will not take the extra effort to make discerning their views discerning based upon all available information, which is something we all kind of did on a regular basis as we move through the day prior to the internet. Prior to 96, you had to seek sources generally, because if you didn't, you're not going to live very long. If you take the person on the streets work for something and you maneuver your life that way, you may die. We've lost that way to run our lives. We are being spoon-fed bullshit, and too many people can't or won't go beyond that to make their life better. I am bewildered. That's where we are, man. I don't get it.
I think what's happened is there's been this loss of spiritual connection. One of the things that makes America unique and makes it exceptional is that America is really the only country in the world that wasn't run by either a monarch or a dictator or some governing entity that told us what to do and gave us rights.
Imperialism, right?
Yeah, exactly. What America was created as a sovereign nation where we were self-governing, and our rights were granted to us by our Creator. That's a huge difference than even Western Europe.
Oh yeah, we're the great experiment, right?
Exactly,
Our
and
form of government.
it's a social experiment
Right.
that's ongoing, and sometimes it's a mess. Oftentimes it's a mess. Mostly it's a mess, but you're still free to make a mess. And
Right.
so that's, I think, the thing that we've lost sight of. And the other thing we've lost sight of is one of the great gifts of America and of freedom is the ability to fail, right? Because it's through failure that you really learn and you are honored, you know.
Right.
And even I'm even full of shit when you ask me what I did. Well, I just told you all the cool stuff, right? I didn't share with you the 45 failures that were in there, and the wiping out and disaster of it is, and the picking yourself up and dusting it out, and the wiping out on your Harley on a stone road, right?
Picking pebbles out your ass.
On your ass, on your elbow, on everything, man. I got a scar on my shoulder that's gross, right? How'd that happen? Oh yeah, I dumped my bike because I was a dumbass, right? But that's we don't celebrate the failures. I'm not sure you should celebrate the failures. I think the failures are learning opportunities.
Yeah.
But I mean, you
Celebrate
can't
the
of course.
effort, not the results.
Celebrate
right?
the
When-
learning.
when
The
it's a
learning,
failure,
yeah, the learning, absolutely.
okay, yeah, yep.
celebrate the learning. Celebrate the gift that it was.
Yeah, the opportunity.
Yeah,
100%.
But that's what we're afraid of failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. Yeah, we are.
We're afraid of failing. We're more concerned with getting likes on Facebook than with putting our balls on the line and taking a risk.
And even to your point about why people don't critically think, because their thought can be a failure now.
Yeah.
The way they believe can be a failure now,
Oh, yeah.
right? So they're afraid of being wrong, right? So if they do a little bit of digging and realize that, oh shit, I was wrong this whole time. Again, we'll use the mask example. So someone was so hardcore mask, like and telling everybody and F you should be wearing a mask. And if they do a little bit of critical research and they find studies that say masks really aren't effective, that means everything they believe for those prior 12 months was a failure.
Yeah.
They don't want that. They don't like failure. They're afraid of it. So they just don't dig. They found the information supports where they are. They're good.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's where critical thinking has left. And
Exactly.
they just don't want to do it because look, there's enough information out there. And I've dug into so many things. Like I've been down the rabbit holes. I have my own opinions. Whether they're wrong or right, that's for me to determine. That's my choice. But
Right.
I've done the thinking. I've made the decisions based upon critical thought and reading and looking, and not taking what the news tells me or not taking what someone else tells me. But people are, and I've made wrong decisions. I've been wrong on certain beliefs I've had. I'm okay with that because I embrace failure. That's how you learn. Like I learned, oh shit, that was wrong. I should have done this. And people are afraid to do that because it's uncomfortable. It makes them uneasy and they don't like that. Like again, we seek that comfort. Comfort is knowing what I believe is right. Or there's people out there that tell me it's right. That's comfortable. I don't have to work anymore. I don't have to think anymore. Why should I need to do that? I'm right.
We've gotten so arrogant though. The
have.
internet's made us arrogant.
Yeah, we're incredibly arrogant. That's one of the we're arrogant and ignorant, and that's not a good combo platter, man. You know.
No, I mean you're right. When you say arrogance, in what respect?
The arrogance to believe that we believe our own bullshit
Yeah.
as fact.
And foundational to arrogance is fear.
And we'll
by the way.
die on that hill
Yeah.
for our beliefs because we stated them, even though we've been proven multiple times that
Yeah.
this particular belief is incorrect.
Yeah.
Many people will die on that hill for that belief.
Yeah, and, there's not even anything to say. That's the thing. Like, it's so hard because I'm just thinking like people are just coming to mind, and I'm just like, yeah, like these people just. You could literally show them the opposite fact. Like, nope, I'm right, and it's just like, come on. And there's a million different viewpoints, right? If you shift your perspective 1 degree, everything changes. Yeah. And I mean, when you think about like how. Let's take just a generalized question. In life, how much is really objectively be able to be proven? When you think about it, like how much of life in general can you objectively prove to be true or false? Not a lot.
No.
And this is the thing. So, but there's so many people now that think everything they believe can be objectively proven.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
That is wrong.
Like, the whole point of science is it's constantly changing. Yeah. And you can't say, well, this is it. Well, no. Well, if a doctor says something different, why is that doctor wrong? It's his or her subjective.
100%.
But again, we get caught up in this. We think there's too much objectivity in the world when there's not. There's a small segment of what we do in the world that can be objectively proven or disproven with fact. The rest is perspective, and it's constantly changing.
I would agree.
And people don't get that. And that's a very important distinction that people need to understand about life in general. Sorry to derail that.
No, I no, because I'm thinking to myself, I gotta change direction a little bit here, because I'm gonna go down a very slippery slope here in a second. He always does that to me. Manhood Manifesto.
Yeah.
Your new book.
Yep.
We're gonna talk about this.
All right, cool.
So, how long the process? How many years you been writing?
Oh, only about 5, maybe.
Okay, so this is a work of 5-year progress.
No, that book was probably, when did I meet you?
Like 2019. 2019. Yeah, 2019.
No.
Yeah.
So the real genesis of the book came
March.
about August of 2018.
Okay, so it's relatively recent then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've gone through a good portion of it.
Yeah.
I will complete it. Just have unfortunately tried. I couldn't get it done before the show in its entirety.
Yeah. It's actually ended up being a pretty long book.
I know enough to be dangerous.
It's a good book.
So, what was the initial, for lack of a better word, inspiration for the book?
Oh, wow. So I went to, I wrote another book. Mm-hmm. And so I had a publicist, and she said, well, you got to go out and do speaking. And I was scared shitless of doing public speaking. I really was. It was weird. It was really weird. Like, I couldn't do it. I tried it, and I just pissed all over myself. I was terrible.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was hilarious. It was actually hilarious.
Should have sent him for you.
Huh?
Should have sent him for you.
We met at a speaking event. That's how we met.
So this publicist says, well, you got to go meet this woman, Trisha Brook. And Trisha Brook, that's how we know it. That's a common denominator between us. So she goes, you got to meet her. And so she's having this workshop in Chicago. So I go down to Chicago, and I go to this workshop, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I'm there with, there's like 25 people there. There's 2 dudes. One guy's gay and me. And then 23 chicks. Women. I can't say chicks, right?
Saying you want.
So anyway, 23 women. And they were all these people in this workshop are ballers. They're all like published authors. They're all running foundations, running businesses, running PR firms. Entrepreneurs. There was a woman who ran a manufacturing company down in Georgia. I mean, these were like world-class leadership type of people. And I'm sitting in the back of the room going, what in the hell am I doing here, right? So then they summoned me up to the front of the room. And this is like supposed to be a speaking workshop. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing there.
All right.
And what do you want to talk about? I said, I don't know. Well, what's important to you? And out of nowhere, it's like, what's important to me is how men are viewed in the world and how men operate in the world right now. Right. And this is right around the Me Too thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And I've got like a room full of women. And it was like I was being used by something other than me. So I start riffing, and Trisha's like, what? And
did you come out of there alive?
No, I came out of there like, elevated. Like, these women are like, you got to get this message out to all the men in the world, right?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, they were cool. They were cool.
Okay.
So no, because it's really a message about responsibility and about self-awareness. Mm-hmm. That's really what the book's foundationally about.
Understood.
Right. And so so that's where it started. So then I started building on that. And
why that subject? Like, what brought that subject into your consciousness?
I think what it was that was after the Me Too thing. You could not hear the word masculinity without the prefix toxic. Mm-hmm. And that's not my experience of being a man, nor my experience of most of the men in my life, right? Mm-hmm. Is most of the men in my life are incredibly generous and kind and powerful and honorable men. Right. There's a couple of assholes in there. I mean, I could be an asshole. Mm-hmm. It's not about being an asshole, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's about how you operate, day to day, and how you treat people around you. So the narrative wasn't matching my experience.
Okay.
So I got curious about it. Then I started looking at media. and the Disney dads and what the buffoons they make them look like. And then when you look at all the conversations and all the casting of characters on different television shows or movies, right? There became this subtle shift to where masculinity and any expression of traditional masculinity.
Yeah, they're eliminating masculinity from entertainment.
Exactly. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, this is important. And then the other thing, after I started riffing on this, I started doing research. Talk first, research second. That's what I always say, right?
Welcome to podcasting.
Exactly. Then I started finding out the impact, like in the educational system, to young men.
Okay.
And the structures for young men and the gaps in that, right? And how we are, like you said, we're trying to eliminate traditional masculinity from our culture. And the truth, then you really look at it, and when you look at the development of Western civilization, right, and how we got to be this place and how we got to be as comfortable as we have, the heavy lifting was done by men. So the narrative and the objective reality didn't match, and nobody was saying anything about it.
Okay.
So then I started looking about it, I started talking about it, and I don't know if I do a very good job of writing about it or talking about it, but that's my stand.
Okay.
And so that's what I've been wrestling with. And it's not, and in the place we got to look, if there's a problem, right, the only way you can solve a problem is if you own it. And that's what my talk at Trish's thing was, where I met Rocco, was, listen, we got a problem here, like with men, and I'm going to take it on. I'm going to own this problem. And this problem comes from an absence of self-awareness and an absence of ownership of the issue, because everyone else is becoming a victim. We can't be victims too. And then during this whole time, I've also got into this neuroscience profiling thing, right? Assessment.
Yes.
And I started noticing, like I've done probably 2,300 of them, probably 70% men, 30% women. And I got to the point where I could just look at it without looking at the person's name and tell you if it was a man or a woman. And that was a big wake-up call for me. Because what I was seeing was men had a very strong relationship to the external world and how to do business and how to get things done and all of that, and a very limited relationship to themselves. And so what happens is, when we're in a time of overwhelm, in a time of chaos, right, and the traditional ways, the regular ways of strategy aren't working, all we have left is ourselves and our own sense of purpose and mission. And if we don't have that, we're going to make really dumb decisions.
Okay.
Right? And so I started noticing that, brought that into my coaching practice and into my consulting. And so just all of this. So really that's kind of how this is all evolved, and it's still evolving, It's by no means is it a complete.
So when you decided the subject matter that you were going to write about, you obviously in the year 2021, you knew the slippery slope you were probably walking into. Am I right?
So I wrote the book the last 3 months of
just the title alone, because I don't know if we're allowed to even use the word manhood anymore in today's society, or the word masculinity for that matter.
Hey, man, I wrote a testimonial for the book, so
I'm aware.
Yeah.
So
fantastic.
The original title of the book was "Man the Fuck Up."
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, so my publisher, who are great, right? There was a plethora of books.
That could be book number 2.
Huh?
That could be book number 2.
Well, it may be. Who knows? But that was. So I wrote the book with that as a title. So they call me up and they're like, dude, there's like 25 books out there that are using the F word in the title.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's going to lose all the punch, all the power. We miss it by like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, what do you think? So I was coming up with all these different variations of Man the Fuck Up. And my publisher, David Bernstein, goes, what do you think about this? And he goes, Manhood Manifesto. I said, I freaking love it, right? And then the whole manifesto part is actually what this is about. Because, as I said, talk first, research later. Well, write first, research later. I mean, there's not a tremendous amount of research in there, a little bit, but it really is just a aggregation of experiences, learning, conversations. I mean, I have incredible conversations with men, 25 hours a week. Right. So you do that over time, you get a pretty clear picture and understanding of what the landscape looks like, right?
Sure.
So from the true sense of what a manifesto is, which is a position held by the writer, that's really what the book is. So I'm like, done. I mean, it was like a 15-second conversation. There was no negotiation. So that's how the title came about.
Do you think that I don't know how to say this. I want to make sure I do not articulate this incorrectly. This could not be good.
You know what? Just drop it and we'll work through it.
Yeah,
Right?
the question is,
Open mouth.
we're
say
so
things.
uberly sensitive now,
Yeah.
and everybody's got to be attached to a cause, and a lot of the causes are individual circumstances in the aggregate that get blown up to then somehow wash over the rest and incriminate the rest. And we just kind of label that and call it bad and stick it over here. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think a lot of the movements in this country are driven by.
Yeah.
Not that there is absolutely injustice in society.
Sure.
There always have been. But areas or pockets of injustice or systemic injustice where it belongs, or where it occurs, it is never appropriately labeled. We just blanket everything,
Right.
put it in a container, and then that's that. Now we're going to move forward knowing that that's bad, or that we don't understand something. And I think that's these terms that get thrown around all the time. I want to dissect them, because when you get down to the nitty gritty, the origin of why the term arose is often one or two case related.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not related because a scientific study was done on 2 million people.
Right.
It's like 3 or 4 cases out of 350 million in this country. Right. That's where I think where I'm getting with the long-winded way of saying that I think that there's I'm not sure that I'm seeing reality when I'm looking at all the catch terms and the movements in the country. I'm not saying that they're all based on reality.
They're not. They're based on emotionalism, and they're based on reaction to a narrative, and everyone's trying to look good, right? So,
And that's symptomatic, I think, of the internet.
Yeah.
well,
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
symptomatic of narcissism,
Yeah.
right? And so we've got, because of the loss of any kind of spiritual practice or spiritual belief or purpose or anything bigger than us, there's 4 core distinctions in leadership. And so one of the things you're pointing to is the absence of leadership. And one of the things I point to in the book is the reason we're in the condition we're in is because the abdication of male leadership. So what happens is there's stuff goes down. It's remarkably stupid. And you know what? We just go, we're going to sit this one out. It's not worth it. You know? Your teenage daughter who lives in the suburbs, who's 16 years old and who dyes her hair purple, that's not a problem. And she wears a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, but she has no real black friends or has never experienced anything inside the black culture. But all of a sudden is calling you and talking about systemic racism. It's all nonsense. But it's been driven by the information from the media and from a way to control us. And what we're doing, we're just sitting back here and going, okay. And every time, here's what I had to come to terms with. Every time I sat back and allowed a false narrative to occur, I was complying with it. And when you talk about indifference and things you care about, like I used to care about BMWs and Rolex watches and shit like that. I don't care about that stuff now. What I care about is freedom. What I care about is human beings living the fullest of their potential. And what I care about is people owning their voice. And when we sit back and we abdicate that, when this nonsense goes on and it takes us over like a wave, that begins to get to my attention. And so that's what's really driving the thing, you know. And you know, I'm kind of like not a one-man show. We had a man fest, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So we had close to 15 guys there, and we had these conversations, and it was remarkable.
It really was.
And the thing is, there was no structure for I brought these guys together. I didn't know what would happen. I thought a hockey game would break out, right? I mean, I had no idea. But what was really interesting was everybody was kind of aligned on the same issues with everything. And there was a range of politics. There was gay and straight guys. There were black guys and Hispanic guys and white guys.
Yeah.
You know, but it was all guys.
Yeah.
And what was happening, and what I assert is happening, is men were so used to operating individually that when we stand up in opposition to this vast narrative coming at us, we get rolled over.
Yeah.
And who wants to do that? Who wants to put themselves on a suicide mission? It's not good sense. It's not pragmatic.
Yeah.
So we're sitting back, but then it's got to the point like how much more can we take? And it's not that we're victims at all. It's like we got to get really clear. That's why the call for this book is to really do the work and get clear on what's important to you. I'm not building a revolution here.
Right.
What I want people to do is get responsible with the relationship to themselves, and then, if it makes sense, get a hold of me or Rocco or any of us that are like in this conversation now.
Yeah.
And then we'll start talking. Right? But up until then, just really pay attention. Because to me, it's clear as day what's going on out there. Clear as day.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Am I rambling too much?
No,
not at all. It's interesting to see what I can only say from my experience is an attack on traditional roles within society.
Absolutely.
And I have no compunction saying that. I'm not worried about who I offend because I'm not even making a value judgment, and I'm assuming most people do and believe what they want out of a good place in their being, as confused as they may be. But I'm not sure that turning society genderless long term is going to be healthy for the species.
No.
I don't see a good, and I'm going to be gone, and you're going to be gone, and generations behind us are going to be gone long before that ever actually would happen. But we're trending certainly in a weird way.
We're getting away from traditional roles, right? And look, we have to understand there are just fundamental differences between genders.
Yeah.
And we just have to call it like it is. I mean, I'm 225 pounds, right? My wife's 110 pounds. There are certain things that I just can do that she can't.
Right.
There are certain things she can do that I can't. That's because of the gender.
And let me ask you this question. So I agree with you, and I do not believe, and I have never believed that when it comes to intelligence or cognitive skills, that there was ever, I never believed that there was a competition. I think there was some injustice in regards to pay decades ago.
There clearly was.
Yes.
But in terms of, I don't think but I think on the physical characteristics of the gender, you can't deny. And it's a whole conversation for the sports world to deal with, and the Olympics. And my point is, why does it have to be a competition? Like, why are certain people in society gearing and driving a narrative that somehow makes it wrong that men are good at physical things based upon how they're genetically made? Like, why does that have to be equalized out? Because if it doesn't get equalized, then it's not fair. Like, where did that thought come from? Or what is it coming from? What's the genesis of that?
I think where it came from was the whole, when we achieved the objectives of the women's liberation movement, right? The equality of pay, the equality of cultural positions, the equality of citizenship, right? Then there had to be the next level of, okay, how do we assert ourselves more? And so what it became then was this, if we're equal to men, then we don't need men. And then we started denying the biological and intellectual differences between men and women. If you start looking at like math scores and things like that, overall men usually perform higher than women in that. If you look at literature scores, women typically perform higher than that in men. The communication skills women do a very good job of. So, but it's not always across the board. There's people that do all of it, right?
Of course.
But we just started. There became, at least it occurred to me, that it became this like, let's eliminate men. And what I think it is once you achieve that one objective, then it becomes about power and control. It's not about that objective anymore.
Yeah, it's like, what's next?
Yeah. So I think it's this thing of like, how do we get more power? How do we get more control? Listen to the narrative of any of the left-leaning political expressions. It's always about how do we get more power? How do we get more influence? How do we get things our way?
See, okay, this is where we may have a different kind of viewpoint, because I agree with everything you've said. We're in congruence, but I believe that this is not a new phenomenon on its face. I believe that these groups, your far right, your far left, your
and that's not even a good example.
Hear me out. They've always been there.
Yeah.
I think in today's society, though, the masses have relinquished power to a small minority of people.
Yeah.
And they have exerted that power of thought,
right,
or they're trying to, over the masses. We've empowered the minority of, and again, I hate using that word because there's a connotation I don't mean. I'm saying in terms of minority of thought.
Yeah.
You know, your far left and far right have louder voices in society than they really fucking deserve.
Right. I mean, the real power's in the middle.
That wasn't before the web. They were the fringe. They were the fringe lunatics that weren't really taken serious, and they were thrown in the corner. They were thrown in the corner at the convention every 4 years. They weren't giving talks because they weren't representing the majority of people.
Right.
So, how did that get turned on its head?
So I think what happened when we talk about that, and tell me if this resonates or not.
Yeah.
When we talk about that explosion of information and data, right?
Okay.
And we get into this cultural state of overwhelm. Everyone's afraid. Everyone's overwhelmed. Everyone, and you may not even be aware of it. But so when you're afraid and overwhelmed, what ends up happening? We got to seek higher ground. We got to seek protection. We got to seek our people. We got to seek our tribe, right? So what ends up happening, I don't agree with everything that person says, but I'm going to go with them. And I don't agree with everything that person says, but I'm going to go with them. So it creates a schism, right? And so then because it's all about survival then. And there's no critical thinking in survival. And the real, it's almost the cosmic joke of this, is the real solution is through partnership. When we talk of men and women, we're designed to be partners. It's a yin and a yang.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
The real solution to these cultural issues we're having is really, there's ideas on both sides that make great sense. Who can argue for more justice? I mean, who can argue against more justice? Who can argue against giving people the right to vote? Right? But then who can argue for, well, it's okay if it's through the mail and some people vote 10 or 20 or 400 times, and right? So we got to actually start the communication process, like Rocco said probably an hour ago. We're not doing that. We're not sitting down and talking with one another.
Well, and to your point, back to kind of what touched on the book, like what you said, these voices are so loud, and because men have been vilified, we just say it's easier just to stay the fuck out,
right, and
not argue about it, and just do my own thing. And that's what's happened to a lot of people in the middle. You let those voices got loud because the rest of us are just doing other shit.
Yeah.
Like I put myself in that boat. Like I used to be a lot more political and really, but that indifference has come. And I've just been focused on what I'm doing. And when it impacts me is when I take a stand. But now I'm also learning, seriously, like after reading the book and the work we've done, there are certain things I need to stand up more for. Because that's my role as a man. And we do have to learn to coexist. It is meant to be a partnership with women. That's how we solve the problems. And we can't just vilify one or the other. We have to learn we were created for a purpose. There are men and women for a reason, right? They're created for a reason. We have to work in partnership. There are just things we can't do. There are things they can't do, but together the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. When we're all aligned and working to fix the actual problems. But the problem is, because men have been beaten down, I'm just using men as the example, we just stay out. We're just like, fuck it, I'm not going to get involved in this bullshit.
What's really fascinating to me on this and this is definitely a segue what we're discussing, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I think there's a lot of intellectual bullying in today's society, or the attempt of it. Oftentimes, I'll say the attempt, because you have to accept it. You have to be bullied. You have to accept the bully, right? But the attempts are there. It's like the beauty of our society, for me, friends, is when you are sophisticated enough, humble enough to realize that everybody is different. And that includes everybody. And all the delineations of skin color, gender, And there's always going to be things that you don't understand intellectually.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be things that are different than you.
Yeah.
When you can find that fascinating and not a threat, and you live your life that way, you look at the rest of the world in a weird light, because you have people that might be unique that are struggling with their gender, they're going through issues. They need the space to do it with freedom and respect and dignity.
Absolutely.
But they don't need a megaphone to try to shut down the mass of people that are living a more conventional life.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't mean one is right and wrong.
Right.
One's more conventional, so you're probably thinking, well, this is not right or wrong. This is how most of society is living. But we've given the megaphone to the fringe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I don't mean fringe in a weird way. Don't fucking get mad. We've given it to the smaller group of people that are going through a different kind of life. When they're not the majority or the majority of the mass, they shouldn't have the right to impose their will on the majority, because the mechanics of life, as we maneuver, only works if you can make rational, pragmatic decisions and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You make rational, pragmatic decisions and move on to the next thing because you do what the majority wants in society for that particular moment, and you move on. When you empower those who are on the fringe and elevate their rights above the masses,
Correct.
you create this function. If I'm going into surgery, my thought is I'm going to get the surgeon who's going to operate on me and I'm going to take his advice.
Yes.
But if I elevate the importance of the janitor there, or the endoscopic person, or the business manager, and I elevate their opinion of my surgery because they have a right to have their opinion, and me take it fucking seriously. Although I'm having the heart surgery, right?
Yep.
But if I have to elevate their opinion and validate it equal to the surgeon, the mechanics of life will not work correctly.
100%
And
agree.
this is the problem as I see it, where we have given the illusion of importance to people's opinions and beliefs and ways of living, and trying to make them feel good, which I want them to feel, but not give them the importance to then dominate over the masses to find their validation, because you're fucking up the system. And the masses are beaten down and weak, and they won't stand up for what's right and wrong as we maneuver the mechanics of life. That's 100%. Where I see the problem is. And if people are offended by anything I said, you're an intellectual idiot, because I have not offended any rational thinking human. I'm talking about the mechanics of maneuvering one's life throughout the day, where you cannot validate and overstate the importance of people who don't have the capacity to give an intellectual opinion on a subject. You can't give them the same credence as people who do it for a living. And that imbalance, exacerbated over an entire population, has fucked up America.
100% agree.
You're welcome.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, it's the other problem I see on top of that is we have created a society where intellectual opposition is a call for a fight, as opposed to it should be a call for inquisition. It should be when you have someone that's intellectually opposed to you, that should allow you to question things, but not call for a fight or a battle or to elevate one's intellectual opinion over someone else's. You inquire into what is right and what makes sense with the facts at hand or the subjective viewpoint. And you said it perfectly. Like, when we're elevating these people's opinions or their perspectives above
their illusion of rights.
Right, exactly. It's like it does fuck up the system, because we were found on a system of majority, right? And now we're letting the pieces on the end.
Every nation in the world is set up that way.
Yes.
But beyond political.
Yes.
You have to maneuver through life.
Yes.
You make your best determination on this issue based upon the majority. What weighs the scale of logic, right? The right side or the left side. Whatever weighs the heaviest, you make that decision and you move on, because you have to make lunch. You don't sit there and waste your whole fucking day because the one side has the right to have their opinion heard. Well, you can talk to your blue in the face, but if your opinion is the minority of opinions, you should not be able to muck up the system because the majority wants something else.
Dude,
yeah, right.
You're not offending anybody.
Right, exactly.
This isn't about taking someone's rights away from them or because of their color, their skin, their gender. This is not about any of that.
No.
This is the mechanics of life.
Yes.
And that offends people.
I know, man. What you articulated...
I don't get it.
You articulated the fallacy of equity. The whole idea of equity. Right?
So that's a fancy way of putting it, but I'll agree with you.
But the other thing, if you think about what you just discovered, the mechanics of life. So everything in physical nature lives inside a standard distribution curve. Would you not agree? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we can have a physics talk?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So
my head's gonna explode.
So you've got standard distribution, right? And so what you're talking about is the people that are getting voiced now, the people, the outliers.
Yes.
The three standard deviations from the mean, those are it. But what's happened is through social construction and through the pandemic, because what does flatten a curve mean? Instead of having a normal standard distribution, you're pressing down, spreading it out, right? And creating sameness.
Yeah.
And the pull, one of the neo-Marxist left agendas is to create sameness with all people. That's what equity is, right? We've got to make everyone the same. It's complete and utter fucking bullshit, and it doesn't occur in nature.
Yeah.
Yet, you have an intellectual argument with someone, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you're a xenophobe, you're this, because I've had these. Listen, I've got a degree in engineering. I've got 18 hours of graduate level statistics. I understand standard distribution pretty well. And when that whole flatten a curve came out, I go, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, right.
I said, here's what's going to happen. It's going to create the amount of what's it called when they have the deviant things, when they, the Delta virus, the different
variants.
Variants. The more you flatten the curve, the more variance there's going to be because you're spreading it out.
Yep.
What my degree is in is understanding process. You want to get something done quick, squeeze it.
Yeah.
What we should have done was raised the curve, get the virus right away, and then be done with it. But because we're pussies, I'm sorry, did I use it? Yeah.
Say anything you want, man.
No, but because we're living in fear all the time, okay? And we're not looking at things critically, and we're not using real science and real math to figure out problems.
Yeah.
We do dumb shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we say dumb shit. And you said it so articulately in like a social way. No, that's exactly what it was, man. I'm going to clip that out and listen to it every single time.
I have some practice because it's been a mantra of mine. I just do not understand.
But
it's so illogical way to live that way.
Well, that's what we're denying.
A third grader should figure that out.
We're denying standard distribution. We're denying that there's and listen, it happens in education. When you start studying what happens in education, they deny the normal distribution of things.
But my point is, the masses give permission,
of course,
for the minority voice to be raised and elevated. I don't get that. What's wrong with us?
Again, we got to get back. We're all in overload, and if someone wants to carry the water, let him carry the water. I'm just going to sit here in my basement and watch more Netflix.
That's so dangerous.
Dude, absolutely.
100% is dangerous.
Wait till the Chinese tanks start rolling down the streets of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the problem. And that's where, we need people to start standing up for things again. And we need to tolerate different opinions. Yeah. We need to tolerate different intellectual perspectives. Yeah. That's how we solve the problem. Because, look, it's when Trump was in office, it was a complete, in people's mind, a complete clusterfuck. And we talked about this last night, I think, at the game. Trump was the dark side president. Yeah. He was everybody, we've talked about the dark side before and how everybody has this yin and yang, your shadow self. Yep. Trump was America's shadow self. Yeah. And people didn't know how to deal with it. But the work you do, the work we've done together and just in my own personal life, once you understand that and embrace it, it changes everything. It makes you whole. It makes you complete. And America didn't engage enough with that shadow self, and that's why we're in the position where this is not about being political.
No.
This is about Trump was the anti-president. And we needed something like that to happen.
Right.
But the problem is, most Americans, because we seek comfort in looking at the shadow self and looking at your dark side, is the most uncomfortable fucking journey you'll go on. As a country, we couldn't handle it, and we had to get him the fuck out. Because we want comfort. Joe Biden was comfort.
Oh my God, what a cluster!
But that's what it was. And that's what happened.
The thing you just said, I didn't even think about, because I heard you mention last time. Yeah, okay, he's a shadow side. But the worst thing you could do when you go down that tunnel is not go all the way through.
Right, exactly.
So we got halfway through the tunnel with this dude.
Yeah.
And then we bailed because we didn't have the guts to fulfill what was started.
Yeah.
So my take's a little different.
That's fine.
But I'm with you. I just think point blank that on a less deep way of putting it, I just think Trump held up a mirror, or Trump was the reflection in the mirror for every fucking American. And nobody likes that side of themselves because they're terrified or they're embarrassed by it.
Right.
Or a combination of the two. But Trump was basically a reflection of every American, because I think since we were little kids in modern, let's say the past 200 years-ish, we're instructed as a little kid that the president's this iconic being, and we want our president to be a better person than we are.
Right. Yeah.
The reality is, to get to that position, you're probably deep down inside a no good mother.
Right.
If by the time you get there, you have done more, and I'm talking about Clinton and Reagan and Bush and Obama, they've done more backroom deals to get to that position. They're not really high quality people. They're just a figurehead that had to maneuver and got there.
Right. Yes.
That being said, Trump was that on steroids, and he was the reflection in the mirror that we just could not. And it offended our sensibilities, because we can't be that bad. We're not that bad as a human. Well, you know what? We kind of are.
We are.
Kind of are.
And maybe that was the other extreme. So we've gone from a president, from a guy who's a cadaver here, to Trump, who's So we've had it. Now we've got So it is kind of ironic. And we're having this show here at the end of August.
Yeah.
We don't timestamp these, but it is interesting to see, without going down the rabbit hole, about the dichotomy between those two men.
Oh, I know.
And what society is encountering. Lunacy, we left the lunacy for senility. And, it's flipped 180. And I'm going to probably think the senility is going to end up being a little worse.
Well, right. I mean, Trump was if we are a government by the people, for the people, Trump is the people. Yeah. That's how he won. He spoke to middle America. He spoke to people. It resonated with people. And you're 100% right. He's a reflection of all of us. Like, I believe human beings are fundamentally good by nature, right? Society is what changes us. America has made us have this shitty side to ourselves, I believe, or just society in general. Trump was a complete reflection of all of us. And like you said, we don't like that. We didn't want to believe that was us. It's ugly. It's like when you do that shadow work and look at that dark side, it's an ugly side of yourself that you got to understand. And we as a country couldn't handle it. And he's mean. He says mean things. Get him out here. I just want someone normal. I want that comfortable old white dude president. And that's what we got. But to your point, we went down the path, and like, when you're going through hell, you've got to come out the other side. We just said, we'll go halfway and we'll come back. And let's just go back to the beginning. And that's where we are. And I don't know which one will be better. I mean, it's still too early to tell. I mean, we see what's happening in the world right now. But you're right. Like, America didn't want to believe that was who we are. And unfortunately, it is. But that's what makes America so fucking great. We can be that way. And we can still function as a society. And yes, there are problems, but every country has problems. There's nowhere else I want to be.
Well, the crazy part about this country is that it was founded by some mean people.
Yes.
I mean, like,
listen, dude, you got to be a badass to create some territory. And again, I am not saying that we should live our lives that there's no reason why. Lewis and we have to live our life today like Lewis and Clark did when they were out, killing Indians and things. I mean, I'm not saying to do that today. I'm just saying
that we really are so hellbound on even rewriting, trying to rewrite history, which is the most ridiculous concept to even try to do that. But basically, we want to make history not so harsh for future generations.
Yeah, we want to sanitize it.
No, you want to make history as real as possible for every generation. You want Trump's warts, as good and bad, to be visible 3 generations from now. You want this person's who's there now. You want this garbage. And maybe hopefully he does some good stuff, but you want his entire record to be visible and accurate 3, 4, 5 generations from now. You don't want to twist. Listen, I want to know Hitler was a despicable human being. Right. I need to know that. My kids need to know that. My grandchildren need to know Hitler is a despicable human being. Okay?
Absolutely.
And if you're going to change American history, because there were some very despicable human beings, and a lot of them were Confederate generals, and the slavery was a fucking horrible thing.
Yep.
But you can't pretend it didn't happen.
Yes.
Right.
That's exactly
you
right.
know, I mean, Hitler and Stalin killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to go tell Europe you're not going to go to Israel right now and tell them, hey, you know, we're going to thinking about maybe because it's a little kinder to rewrite that whole Holocaust thing for future generations in the history books. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like, what kind of woke mentality includes rewriting atrocities, rewriting them? I get not celebrating them, and I think some statues are celebratory and should be gone. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think there's a difference between a monument and a statue. You can make a delineation. I think that some things are representative of history for learning, some are celebratory. I think we as an intellectual species can figure out which is which. I'm not saying we're doing that now, but we can do that if we choose to.
Sure.
But that's argument aside. I don't believe celebrating evil. But you can't, under any circumstance, pretend it didn't happen or try to erase it or rewrite it. I mean, what kind of moron does that?
You can't remove evil because you need to know it exists. You need to know it exists. You need to know. I mean, we learn from history. If you erase the evil from history, then we repeat ourselves. That's what'll fucking happen.
Well, you know, it gets back to the yin and yang too.
Yeah.
The level that we can accept evil is also the level we can accept love.
Yeah.
Right? The level that we can be with the despicability of human beings and the meanness of it is a level that we can accept generosity. And when we look now, when we start thwarting that expression of, like, the thing that drives me nuts is hate speech, right? Like, fuck, really?
Yeah.
So when we start thwarting and reducing the way we can express ourselves on the dark side, let's say, okay? We're also putting a cap on the level that we can express ourselves on the light side. And so what ends up happening now, yes, we've censored people. Yes, we've reduced hate speech. Yes, we're reducing the influx of evil. Well, we're not really, but we think we are. But we've also reduced the expression of love and acceptance and kindness and warmth, right?
100%.
And so we need it all. That's what being alive is about.
Yeah.
Well, the hate speech argument always falls short with me because you can't apply it to love speech because the same kind of attack you would, which you deem hate, you also could say that this is too loving for some reason. It doesn't come to mind right now, but it could be. You could have an opposite way of viewing that.
Yep, sure.
But the issue is, it all comes down to, it's all arbitrary. Like, if you're going to have hate speech, then there's got to be a governing body determining what's acceptable and what isn't. And that becomes thought policing, which goes against the concept that providing you're not initially harming someone, like yelling fire in a crowded theater,
right?
You know, and that even gets sketchy.
Yeah.
It really is. If we're going to protect anything, we really need to protect the opportunity of free expression, because the moment you clamp down and you arbitrarily decide what is hate and what isn't, what's offensive, what isn't, it's game over, man.
I mean,
it's game over.
Look at the shit that happened with social media. So our president of America was kicked off of social media, yet the Taliban, who are beheading people in Afghanistan, their Twitter has not been shut down.
I know.
Explain that to me. Explain the logic. Like that. This is the problem, right? We are starting to eliminate the freedom of expression,
There's no question.
the freedom of thought. And like to your point, you have the yin, the yang, the black and white of life.
Yeah.
If you start eliminating it, then everything just becomes gray. And we live in a fucking shitty society because you have to have the polar opposites. You have to have evil to have love.
No doubt.
You have to have bad to have good. If you start eliminating the evil, then everything just kind of meshes in the middle and the world turns gray.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. And the fact, like, that whole Twitter thing, like, still blows my fucking mind. How on earth can we say we're going to remove the president because he's fucking mean and says things that offend people, but a terrorist organization that have literally killed Americans and are doing terrible things, they haven't been shut down yet?
Even as we sit here right now.
Right. As we sit here, August 26th, they have not been shut down.
What
the fuck?
I asked that question on social media. You know what the response I got was?
More hate, probably.
No. It was actually really, really interesting.
Okay.
The Taliban followed the standards set forth by Twitter. That's where we've arrived.
Oh my God.
Is that not the most
That's ridiculous.
fucked thing you've ever heard?
Yeah. Yes.
But so
That's
it's the
unbelievable.
That's I saw that and I was speechless. I was like, whoa, that one got me, man.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me ask your opinion on something.
Yeah.
So, it's a different kind of question. So, we had a conversation last night at a baseball game where, Mike and I did, about social responsibility that brushes up against capitalism for baseball team owners. You know, we were both kind of the belief that, you know, yes, you can run that business and make it profitable. You have the right to do it. You own it. But in that particular field, in that industry, does a baseball owner also have a responsibility to understand the impact of what that does to the community, to understand their customer?
Okay.
In the same thing here with social media, they're for-profit enterprises, right? But now they have gone beyond that because of their reach, especially Facebook, because billions and billions of people have Facebook.
Yeah.
So, how do they maneuver now in a? Do they maneuver purely as a non-profit company? Do they maneuver a non-profit but with this social construct attached to it? Like, how does that work? Or are we still figuring this out?
I think we're still figuring it out. And what I hope occurs, and again, I am the eternal optimist, and I can live in La La Land as well as anybody. But what I hope occurs is that as human beings, as we become more aware, and we start sharing like the purpose of what it means to be alive, what it means to be a citizen, right?
Okay.
So someone who, like, the Pirates are a great example, right? This guy he's just gutting the team, and he's pocketing all the cash. And it's actually created a model where there's more and more and more teams doing it. The Cardinals are doing it. We watched the Cardinals last night. That team sucks. The Cubs have done it. The Kansas City Royals are doing it. The Arizona Diamondbacks are doing it.
They have done it.
They have done it. So you've got
Miami.
Miami, I think, is kind of quasi trying to rebuild, but they're in the early stages. They've actually put some resources.
Baltimore.
Baltimore's another one. They've just white flagged it, right? So first and foremost, Major League Baseball's got to ask the question, what are we here for? What's our purpose? If it's just to make money, it's not. As people get bored with the product, what's going to happen is, this is why capitalism works. It doesn't work as quickly as we'd like, but people stop watching it. You know, and so that's all there is to do. It's just, you know, what I love about PNC is like the most. Is that what that's called now? Yeah. Is the most beautiful ballpark in America, I think.
All right.
You know,
hard to argue.
That's not either Wrigley or Fenway.
Yep.
Those two are in a case of their own.
Red
Sox.
Shithole.
No, have you been there since?
I like
Have you been
Wrigley.
to
Not
Wrigley
recently,
since it's been restored?
It's a cool ballpark. Good to go.
Dude.
Okay.
I'm not even a Cub fan, and I love the place.
I put it up there near Fenway, and I've been to a bunch of
Really?
ballparks. It's because it's old school. You just feel.
it's
you feel
very
the baseball
cool.
there.
It's very
I'll
cool.
take your
They did it
word for
right.
it.
They did it right.
Yep.
Just shout out to Theo.
Yeah.
Who's also the guy who restored Fenway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yep.
So anyway, but yeah, so we just have to vote with our actions and our alignment and with our dollars. And that's how capitalism works, and it's going to take time. But yeah, I think, and then the other thing, this is the absence of male leadership. I'm going to assert that the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates is an absolute and utter beta male. because he doesn't have the stones to stand for the right thing to do. You know?
Yeah.
Because at the core
Interesting.
of being a man
Interesting.
is providing, protecting, and leaving a legacy. He's providing nothing to the fans of Pittsburgh. He is not protecting the franchise, and he definitely isn't creating a legacy. So he's abandoned his role as a man. So he is, in my words, he's a douche, right?
I think there's a lot of Pittsburghers who would agree with you.
Yeah, and listen, I go to one Pittsburgh game every 5 years,
Yeah.
you know. But the guy is he's the I don't even know the guy's name, but I can tell you just from what you're seeing. And the thing that blew me away when the Pirates came back, there were, I don't know, 7,000, 8,000 people. In the stadium.
Maybe. I said 700.
4,500.
Was it 4,500? I don't know what it was.
I don't know.
But there weren't a lot of people there. There were sections that were completely empty, you know. And when they came back, you could feel it, man. We were
Yeah.
How bougie is this? We were sitting in our box.
We were in Rocco's box, yes.
Yeah, we were sitting there like, dude. When I say that, I just thought, oh
Hey,
my god, this
we
is
had a good
hilarious.
time. We had a
Yeah,
good
we had
time.
a great
That's all that
time.
matters.
But we were sitting in our box, bullshitting with you,
Yeah,
me and David,
yeah.
and all of a sudden, everything like there's a
The
baseball
crowd-
game going
Yeah,
on.
exactly.
And it was, you could feel, like I could only imagine what that place would be like with 40,000 people. It would be wild.
Yeah, right.
It's something.
You know,
Yeah.
it's got to be a thing, man. And so I'm like, that dude is such an idiot because he's missing. He could have that experience 81 times a year,
Right.
Yep.
right?
But that on the social media front, though, like these companies that are banning people because they're being pressured to. I mean, the whole Trump banning from Facebook, whether you like Trump, whether you hate Trump, you got to put the emotions aside for a second and try to step back and look at what happened.
Yeah.
Are you, if you're against Trump, or if you're for Trump, or indifferent, or don't give a fuck, are you okay with them removing a mouthpiece from a sitting president? Are you okay with what that implies? And that implies is that you, the American, are not quite intelligent enough to make up your own decision whether or not you want to ingest or
exactly right.
believe this man's words.
Yep.
That you're not smart enough to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're going to protect you from it so
That's-
you don't have to make that decision.
That's exactly the
That's
great
what
point.
every American needs to look at, regardless of your political circumstances. Do you want media? I mean, right now, our media, in terms of news media, is a complete abject failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will make the arguments, being a 55-year-old man, I can go back in time remembering that there was some editorializing that once in a while, Dan Rather would creep into CBS Evening News. You'd hear the liberalism come out in him.
Yep.
Or Peter Jennings sometimes on ABC, but not often.
Right,
It was
right.
they played it pretty well.
Right.
Yep.
But you saw it.
Yeah.
You can make the argument that the liberal type of thought in our country had their way with media, and then I guess Fox came along in a big way and maybe provided an alternative voice. I quite frankly think that happened on the radio with truckers in the 80s and Limbaugh and all that stuff, but ultimately the right then found their niche.
Yes.
And now what we have is Fox, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know it changes, but I think Fox is like the dominant horse now. But you have like three or four other liberal ones,
That's right.
and you've actually provided the public something horrible, and that is the most easy way out of just picking the side that they think philosophically is with them, and then getting their quote-unquote news from an echo chamber.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
No.
Well, to your point, I want to go back to what you said about the Facebook thing, and that is very profound, and that is the absence of critical thinking in this country, right? Because so many people are like, yeah, Trump should be banned. I'm like, do you understand what you're saying? You are basically saying that these social media companies have the power to tell you what you should and shouldn't believe. That is the bigger problem. It's not about removing Trump. It's about these companies, like you said, made the decision that you're not smart enough as a citizen of America to determine what you believe. We're going to do that for you. We're going to remove this shit for you. People don't look at that because that takes that extra step of critical thinking. What does this actually mean? There's like, yeah, he should be banned. He's saying bullshit. He's saying inject Lysol. No, he's not. He's not saying a lot of things. Like, no one wants to do that critical thinking. And they were just like, yes, he should be banned. He's an asshole. It's not about whether you like Trump or don't like Trump or banned or not banned. The fact is, you just said you're okay with a private corporation that is
muzzling your president.
Muzzling your president because they believe, the elites that run that company believe they know better. They know what's best for the public. Not that you have the brains to make your own decision.
Okay.
That's fucked up.
Okay, so I grew up in a mixed household with Republicans and...
Yeah.
I mean, I ingested it all as a kid. And
Sure.
I was always told that what you had just described was labeled the limousine liberal. That's what I remember hearing as a child.
Okay.
You know, they'll do what I say, but don't look too closely at me.
Yeah.
You know, they knew what was best. The guy that never worked a day in his life in the house in Greenwich, Connecticut, somehow knows what's best for the single mom with 4 kids in Crafton, PA. That whole, you know, I don't, like I said, I'm just labeling like I ingested as a kid. Yeah. But that kind of sounds like that, you know, so it really isn't what you described that Twitter or Facebook is doing. Isn't that pretty much part of the cradle to grave mentality that proliferates some political thought? Yeah. Cradle to grave meaning this government's going to take care of you from the moment you're born to your dead, to the point when taking care of you can even protect you from meanness, or protect you from having to make tough decisions. That's part of the cradle to grave mentality. Yes. It isn't just financial.
No, absolutely.
It's the brain. I don't know if we're paying attention enough to realize
that's we're not doing the critical thinking, but that's really what's happening. Yeah. And that's fucking scary.
It's real scary.
Like more so than the financial piece. Like when we start letting companies or the government tell us what to think, how to act, what to put in our body, like that's a scary.
They can, see, I'm okay with them telling us, but then I would almost say that shame on us too for being so weak in our being that we just succumb to whatever we just ingest whatever we're given. Because how do we get so soft? Because there was always crazy voices coming at you from all different kinds of angles for decades, but somehow we could discern what was good and make good decisions, move forward and maneuver our life. Why is it so hard to do that today?
We've gotten really comfortable.
Yeah.
We've progressed. Listen, I grew up in Berwyn, right? There were all these bungalows throughout Berwyn. It was an area a lot like Carnegie, right?
Yeah.
Older suburb built in between 1900 and 1920 something.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably fully built by 25.
Right on.
Right. So the probably the average size house in that before any kind of reconstruction or addition was put on was probably about 900 feet, 900 feet. Okay. In that 800 or 900 feet, it was not untypical to see a family of 4 kids.
Oh yeah.
Right. Growing up, and that's how we lived. And you had a backyard, and it was on a lot that was 25 feet by 100 feet big, right? So most people, unless they're yuppies living in an urban area and have it completely rehabbed and done and another 1,500 feet added to it, don't live that way. So fast forward, that's where I grew up. Where I live now, I live in a 2,500 square foot lot, or 2,500 square foot house, which is bigger than the lot I lived on, right? On almost a third of an acre, out in the burbs, and, there's 2 people living there.
Got it.
Right? So what's comfortable? What's not comfortable?
Yeah.
And the thing then becomes too, then you just put all this stuff, and we got so addicted to comfort and convenience and so addicted to things. That became our God. Not our families, not our values, not our communities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember I lived in this one subdivision up in Wisconsin, and it was really a cool place, and I loved living there. But in the wintertime, you would not see anyone from Thanksgiving until like the 1st of May because it was cold.
Yeah.
And you would see the garage doors open up and people would go in, and it would snow. You were literally living in a tube for like half the year.
Right.
And you've got all the internet stuff and all of this, and it's very comfortable.
Got it.
But that's kind of what we've identified as progress. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's some arrival here, and we've kind of created this, and now we've got to, like you said, we can't go back and go, we fucked up.
Yeah.
We got to celebrate the progress we've created, and we've got this need for progress. Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Do you know what something that is really progressive is? Cancer. That's progress.
Yeah.
That's uncontrolled growth.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what what's been going on, and we haven't done the critical thinking, we haven't done the inquiry, we haven't created a relationship with ourselves to really ask what's important to us, you know. And I think that's the journey we need to go on if we want to end the nonsense that's going on right now.
Yeah.
But we're being told what's important to us by someone other than us because we're supposed to. And the truth is always discovered, it's never told. So that's why it's so much about inquiry and asking and looking and diving in and getting it on you.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest misunderstanding is about the word masculinity? What's the biggest distortion, the modern definition of that? What is being misunderstood about the concept of masculinity?
I think it's the perception that if someone's masculine, they're going to be brutal, right? They're going to be physically abusive, emotionally abusive, socially abusive, right? That they're just going to conquer, you know? I think that's especially the alpha males, you know? I think that's the biggest concern, you know? And it shows up in hyper competitiveness and things like that, you know? And here's the thing we got to own those as dudes. Those fears are based in observed reality. People's had those experiences. So we've got to be cognizant of that. We've got to manage our own wake, you know? We got to notice because dude, this dude's pretty competitive. I can hang in the competitive nature, right? And so especially when we get so focused on we're going to do this, you know, come hell or high water, there was a time I had no problem taking somebody out, you know? I mean, I destroyed a guy's business one time because he got in my way. Destroyed it. And I made it my mission, you know? I don't know if I'd do that today. What I would do, I would still make my mission to acquire that business and go after the business and serve the customer the way I did. But I wouldn't have had the ancillary thing where I had to make this guy die. He didn't die physically, but he had to close his business, you know? And that was all ego-driven. And I think that's the thing. We got to go from being ego-driven to being more purpose-driven or commitment-driven, right? And we got to get aligned with what is that purpose? What is that real reason we're here? Because otherwise, the default is going to be ego.
And that's where I think the big misconception is. I think the misconception is masculinity is driven by ego.
Yeah. No.
And I don't think it is. I think true masculinity, when you understand yourself as a man, it's driven by your purpose. And it has to be. But it's hard. People don't want to do the work to figure out that purpose, right? And we were having a discussion last night. I was with my buddy Ed, and he was talking about how I don't believe family or kids is the purpose, right? That's part of who you are. That's part of my kids and my wife and my family is not the purpose of why I do the things I do. It's not my purpose in life. They are what I protect. They are part of that legacy and but that's not my purpose. And too many men, I think, put that as their purpose and just think they check the box. Okay. Well, my family's my purpose. Okay. My kids are my purpose. Okay. No, that's just that's you now. That's part of the makeup of you as a man, your family and your kids. That's not your purpose. Purpose is something deeper. It's something more spiritual. It's something that drives you, to get you out of bed. Not that my kids don't get me out of bed every day, but there's something bigger. But too many men have just checked that box and think they found it. And the piece of, to match your question, people think masculinity is that ego driven, because when you don't know the purpose and you have that alpha male mentality, you are driven by ego and you are an asshole. But when you understand the alpha male that has figured out the perfect purpose, like the ethical alpha male, which we've talked about at Manifest, it's a different way of operating, and they're kinder. But I look at myself as I tend to think I'm a masculine male, but I'm also kind. I'm sensitive. I will take care. I will be the first one to step in front of a bus for anybody I love or care about. My family, my kids, my employees, my close friends, the two of you in this room, I'll get in front of that bus. But I'm also gonna be that kind-hearted person that will help somebody, that I have that humility, that I don't know everything. I don't have to be, the one busting through the door if I don't need to be. And I think as a man, we have to start understanding that, because I know my purpose. I know my way of operating in the world. And it's a long journey to go through. And I think more men need to do that.
Yeah, the funny part is, it's just once you work on or you maneuver your life based on principle, your life is easier.
So much easier.
So
much easier.
difficult to be non-principled.
Yeah.
And again, don't confuse principle or my principles of being right or wrong. That's not the judgment. It's just it's just believing in something and maneuvering your life based upon a principle or a set of principles, a personal philosophy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can argue the right and wrong because my personal philosophy is different than both of yours.
Yeah,
There's no question. If we were to sit here for an hour and articulate the tenets of our personal philosophy, there's going to be differences. There's no right or wrong. But when you are unprincipled or have none, I think everybody has it, but do you recognize that you take the time to bring it out? That's another question,
Eric,
too.
what you're talking about is a real simple distinction that guys fuck up all the time. It's the different, what Rocco's talking about, when you identify your purpose, what that allows you to do is to be in alignment with that. So the being of man versus the doing of man, right? And so I've gotten to know this guy pretty well. And he is deadly consistent with who he's being every single day. What that does, that allows him the dexterity to choose what action to take given the terrain he's on in that moment.
Right.
He's not tied up to some doctrine. He's going to go this way for this time and this way for this time because that's what the situation and the terrain requires. But who he's being all the time is he's being this guy who's committed to making a world better for everyone.
Got it.
And in that, the palette he gets to paint on every day is his being of a father and a husband, right? And who he gets to be for his kids. That's where we screw up. All too often we get so caught up in doing things because we're going to get paid or we're going to get credit or we're going to look good or we're going to get a like or we're going to do this, all this. And we lose sight of who we're being. And by this commitment to being, we violate the principles you're talking about of who we by just doing stuff, we violate who we're really committed to being because we got to do this and we got to do this. We witnessed that last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That one guy is so struggling.
Yeah.
Because he's so caught up in doing and hasn't inquired as to what it does mean to be a man.
That's exactly right.
To be a partner.
Yep.
To be a business owner.
Yep.
To be any of this. Right. And it was so fascinating to see. It was such a clear depiction.
It was.
Rocco and I saw it.
Yeah.
And the poor guy didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's still asking these questions.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
And we're like, it's right here,
It's
man.
right here, dude. Just do it. This is what you got to do. That's.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's your choice. It's your choice. I can't make you do it, dude.
Yeah, but you're right, man.
All I can do is offer you the pathway.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a thought mentality out in society today that you must judge every experience and everything as either being good or bad?
I don't know, man.
As opposed to just looking at the differences between things and not making a moral right or wrong opinion of it,
Yeah,
understanding for things what they are and knowing that there's no consequence or no benefit to look at everything as being either right or wrong, making that hard decision, because it doesn't leave us as a society for any middle ground. It doesn't leave us
Rules
the
are relative.
opportunity to breathe, reflect on if we could be indifferent on this matter. Would it work better for our lives if we would be? See, that kind of thought, it's so like that entrepreneurs at the end said, well, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Well, I just thought for a second, well, somebody would view that as being a bad thing. That's negative.
No.
That could have been the most positive statement that man has ever made.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No,
True.
it's
Absolutely right. Yes.
actually where he's at.
Yeah.
But
it takes a little bit more thinking to understand that's more of an assessment, not a guttural right or wrong thing.
Everything's relative.
But we're working at a guttural level in society in a big way, and we're not just taking the next step. I don't think the concept of critical thinking is a big chasm, right? No. But the gist of it are things we learned in grade school and how you learn to think and logical deduction and things. Simple stuff. When you go in the playground, you had to realize, well, I don't want to go punch Jimmy in the face because he's probably going to hit me back. Right. That's not a good thing to do. Right. He made me mad, but I'm going to go on with my day.
Right.
You learned how to make those decisions. You didn't go up to Jimmy and go, I have the right not to be made fun of, and I don't start
Yeah.
I don't worry about my rights and somehow how they need to be validated, or or I need to have some kind of emotional currency there to make me even with you.
Yeah.
We're teaching kids this nonsense. And I just feel that the mechanics of life is so complex now because we know how to critical think. Even the kids born in the internet age, I believe that they learn good, solid stuff from these elementary teachers.
100%.
They do. I believe in teaching. But we somehow get into the machine of social media when we learn how to get our first phone at 8. And then we just somehow give in. And is it because everything's being spoon-fed to us? Every answer in the world is there through Google, so we don't have to really take the initiative to seek out information. I don't know what it is, but we're so lazy as we maneuver our process.
Yeah. I think it's what you're pointing to is what we've identified as progress is actually, you're starting to win me over on this laziness thing.
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
But
it's true.
But some of the structures we've created has kind of created laziness. Like a research project in school,
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
They just go and Google stuff.
Right.
How many kids actually don't cheat their way through college or high school? Be honest with me. You parents out there. How many of those term papers did your kids really write the past 8 years in high school or college?
Yeah.
Really? Or did you just close your eyes and pretend that they did when you knew they were Googling or hiring someone in a different country and paying them $5 to write the paper for them?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm just saying this is the life we...
Yeah. Yes.
The ease of maneuverability in
And we
society.
label it as progress. It's progress.
Yeah.
And that's progress. Yeah.
But it gives opportunity. It gives opportunity to the people that are willing to do the fucking work.
Yeah.
And I always come back to that. Like,
And what? Okay.
in the world in general. Like,
Oh no! Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know.
I thought you were saying creating that ease.
No, that
No.
ease that's created in
the
society
use of the ease.
has given other people that are willing to push past.
Well, it's flattened. It's suppressed the level of competition because there's so many people are okay being lazy or not lazy, just apathetic or whatever the term, or comfortable, or you seek predictability, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're not rising above to be excellent.
Yeah. You know what? I love what you're pointing to, Rocco. Like, we've got to be very comfortable and very taking shortcuts and cheating and all this other stuff is out there, right? And the fact of the matter is we still live in a free culture and we still can be exceptional and we can still go after it. I'm sitting in the ballpark last night, and I'm just looking at the skyline. I'm like just being with how beautiful Pittsburgh is and how beautiful the ballpark is. And I'm looking at these buildings, they all got names on them, right? And I was sitting with Ed, right? And I'm going, Ed, what's that building? That's a law firm. What's that? That's a law firm. That's a law firm. And I had this moment, like, there's these behemoth law firms here.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm thinking, no wonder Rocco's killing it.
Yeah.
They got these guys that are just like these monuments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's all this need out there.
Yeah.
I just had this thought, like, someone could call you up, actually get their thing handled before they'll even get the phone call answered.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Oh, he found his differentiation.
Yeah.
But he created that differentiation.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I wanted to point to it.
Yeah, that's where the skill came.
Is exactly
creating it.
And the vision, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's these monuments out there that many people would be afraid to engage in that terrain because it's dominated by these big things, right? And Rocco's like, hell no, man. Done.
Yeah.
Like there are these clear pathways for me, and I'm going to kill it and screw those guys.
Yeah.
And I just saw, because you've said this to me before, but I witnessed it, like it became in Technicolor.
But it's when you understand your purpose, and that's really what it boils down to. When you understand your purpose, things become really fucking clear, like very clear. And I think we've had this discussion in the past. We've talked about it, and that's what we need more of in this country. When people really get what they're about and what that life, like you said 10 minutes ago, life becomes really easy. And for me, when I did that journey and went through all the shit and looked at it, then the fog clears. And it's like, I know exactly the path I'm on. I know exactly where I'm going. I know the work I'm going to have to do, and it's going to be fucking hard. And I get that, and that kind of comes to that point. Like, I'm willing to push past it because I don't like laziness. I don't like comfort. Like, I like being uncomfortable as fuck every day.
Right.
And that creates the opportunity. And I think more people in this world, if they saw that as the opportunity, we'd have a lot less problems in this fucking country. We'd have a lot more successful, happy people in this country.
No question.
That's what we need to get. That's what people need to get into their head is be excellent, strive for excellence. You have so many opportunities in this country. I mean, really, you do. And if you just take a little bit of effort and strive for being a little bit better every day, this world can fundamentally change in the next 5 to 10 years for the better.
But what about people that just don't know what turns them on, man? It's like, because money, I'm a weird guy. I'm not wired like I thought I would be at 55. I thought I'd be wired differently. And now I've come into this metamorphosis where I'm not wired and motivated by the same things even 5 or 7 years ago that I was. So, but I'm fascinated by life. But I know I'm a rare bird because we're sitting here, you know, where a lot of my friends my age think I'm out of my fucking mind because they're headed into more relaxed part of their life. They've earned it. I'll hand it to them. But they're not interested in doing this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like fascinated by getting in people's brains.
Yeah.
But my point is, that's what gives me my juice. That's what makes me go. What about people that just can't figure that out, or they can't find that thing that drives them? Maybe it's not money for those. I mean, some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life are those people in healthcare.
Yeah.
That goes kind, and usually you find them in nursing because money didn't drive them. They didn't want to go further in medicine. They loved what they did. They got an emotional and a spiritual gift by doing it every day. I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, you know, I wish I was more wired, but what about people that don't have that? Like they've never been able to find what resonates with them. How do they find that? Like, especially if they're in their 50s and they're unhappy with their lot in life, or they're just blasé that they've done the same old for so long. How do you ignite somebody, even in their 20s? How do you ignite somebody to find that passion, especially those unique people who are really not motivated by money? Money should be the easy one, but if they're not really motivated by money, it's like, how do you encourage somebody? Because you can't do it for them.
Right.
But how do you encourage somebody to find that spark? Because I feel bad when I meet people that tell me they have nothing. They're not enthused by anything. They're not morbid or suicidal, I don't think, but they just don't. They're not driven by anything. They can't articulate.
Yeah.
Outside of the standard, I work, I go to work for my family, and well, of course you do. You love your family. I get it, but you ask them what really drives you. Where does your passion lie? They can't articulate it. That puzzles me. It's always puzzled me.
I think ultimately we've got to come to the realization that our happiness, our fulfillment, is our personal responsibility. And I think
ourselves.
Yeah, it's like I'm responsible for my happiness. It's not your job to make me happy, right? And so I think first of all we've got to diffuse or debunk the mythology that someone deserves to be happy, or deserves to be fulfilled, or deserves to be passionate. Listen, you deserve whatever you create for yourself. So if they want that, you know, if they just want to be bored and you know, check out and waste this beautiful gift that we have as life, that's actually their prerogative.
Yeah.
You know?
I get it.
Yeah.
No, I respect that. I
Right?
respect that.
But but I don't think that's the way most people are. I think what happens is people try things out. They get a couple bumps on them, and they get afraid, and they get stuck, and they give it up.
They get defeated.
That's it.
And so what you need to do, that's a bigger conversation. You got to understand, what are they afraid of, you know? And you got to understand, what are they willing to do?
Yeah.
You know? What are you willing to do? Like, what do you want, and what are you willing to put at stake for it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the first question. And if you just want to sit and bitch, well, that's simple. Continue to bitch. Carry on. But if you really want to, you know, get going, what are you willing to put at stake for it? What's it worth for you?
Yeah.
Right?
What are you willing to put at risk?
Yeah. Because most people aren't. And I think the people that can't find their passion, the first question I always ask them is, what have you done that's made you completely fucking uncomfortable? And most people say, nothing. I'm like, that's your problem. Like,
that is so profound.
But that's the truth. When you really think about it, you haven't found your passion because you've been sitting in your box. You've been sitting in your comfort zone. Because the passionate people out there are the ones willing to put shit on the line, willing to take the risks. Like, I walked away from corporate America to build my firm. It was the scariest fucking decision in my life, but I found my passion.
Well, you know what's amazing too, dude? Anybody who's really financially driven would have thought you were nuts.
Of course. 100%. Most people did think I was fucking crazy when I did it, but I knew
I got a similar story exactly like that.
But that's the thing. Like, the people that can't find their passion, if you really ask them, what have they done that made them really gut-wrenchingly uncomfortable? And 99.99% of them will say nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the fucking problem.
See, what you're pointing to, dude, is your relationship to fear and uncomfort is different than a lot of people. And that's what we got. So, again, the alpha males, right? The like, that uncomfort, that fear, that discomfort, that's like, all right, man. Game on.
That's when I think that's when there's a risk involved. That's when you will always feel alive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a wise thing to do stupid shit.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Don't take your life savings and bet on the Pirates tomorrow. I'm not saying to do that.
Could have bet on them last night. You would have made a ton of money.
Especially when they're down 7-3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the risk thing, when there's something at play, when you have something on the line, when something tangible is there, it doesn't always have to be a physical or monetary thing, but when something is in play that's meaningful to you, that you could lose. Yeah. That's when you find out who you are.
100%.
And that's also where you basically find the electricity of life, I believe. I mean,
dude, consider every day what we have at risk is our life.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when this thing's over.
Right.
And so do you want to sit in your basement wrapped up in bubble wrap?
That's my argument for everything I do.
This past week, 2 people I went to high school with that were 2 years younger than me both passed away.
No kidding.
This week.
Wow.
2 people.
Brother, you're getting to the age
with.
now. You're mid-40s. You're getting to the age where you start to see this.
Right, but that put things in the perspective
world,
to me. Like, life is fragile.
And it really is, man.
And it's a beautiful thing. And we need to stop being so fucking negative as people and so pissed off and just realize, like you've said, like, every day is a fucking gift. When you wake up in the morning, like, we get to do things.
Well, it's a miracle that you ever were here, that you were born. Because you didn't have to be born.
Right.
You know?
No, you're right. And that's a profound, fundamental thing. When you think about it, you're like, kind of fucks with your head, but it's like, I'm here. Like, I'm here.
Yeah, there's
a blessing.
Absolutely no question about that. Turning the table a little bit here, what can we do, Mike, in regards to kids, males, obviously, probably. Well, no, males and females. When you're speaking to the group, to understand that, getting male children to understand what masculinity really is, as they move through their life, and also to the females to understand that masculinity doesn't have to be the concept of masculinity doesn't have to be a threat. What do we need to do at the elementary educational level? You know, I mean, because I know obviously there's, I'm guessing, I would hope anyone 18 years old or even 16 would read this, but I'm guessing we're gonna reach an audience that's gonna be in their 20s up for this, right?
I don't know.
But my point is, what can we do as parents, as educators, as members of the church, as members of the community? What can we do to somehow demystify the concept of masculinity for youth?
Lead by example. Right? Be a good man. Lead by example. Show up on time. Do what you say you're going to do. Take your kid fishing. Play catch. Be home at night for dinner. Right? Ask questions. Inquire how their day went. Listen. Hug them. This shit is not heavy. You know?
Doesn't sound too hard to me.
You know? But be a man. Right? Get clear on what your purpose is. Create the structure to fulfill on that. Live in accordance with that. And then when shit gets in your way, like, one of the things I love about this guy over here, whenever you fuck up, he spends about 3 seconds mourning it, and it's back on the bike.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
Well, never mind.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, it's incredible. His relationship to failure is so profound. So don't get stopped.
Yeah.
When you're committed to something, get her done.
Yeah.
You know, like, If you make a promise to your kid that you're going to take him to the ball game, and your boss calls you up at 4:45, says, "I got a special project for you." Sorry, not today, because I'm taking my kid.
Yeah.
Got it.
You know,
Gotcha.
most guys wouldn't even. Oh fuck! They'd call their kid up and go, "I'm sorry, we can't go tonight." Well, I'll make it up to you.
Yeah.
And we don't even think about it. And so what ends up happening is that becomes the experience of what masculinity is this series of disappointments, this series of failed endeavors, this series of half promises.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. And then we go home and we're frustrated, and someone asks us something, we snap at them. So then that's what toxic masculinity looks like: anger, disappointment. That,
Got it.
you know, it's a downward spiral, and it just comes from not being present. Listen, I know this because I was that. Just to be honest, let's be fully transparent. I was that guy. You know, and then I couldn't be that guy anymore. I couldn't be with myself anymore.
Got it.
Right. So yeah, and it takes a long time. This guy's so ahead of schedule at 44 years old. You know, like I wasn't until I was 53 before I really started asking those questions. You know, I was in denial the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's aging is a bitch.
You know what, dude? I love it, man. Every decade has been better than the one before.
Do you want some more of it? I'm glad you give me some of mine. If I can go in reverse.
It's only a number, man. It's only a number.
Well,
yeah,
consider the alternative is not what you want.
Well, yeah, that's what keeps me sane. Is knowing that it's definitely better than the alternative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man. Absolutely.
Now the whole concept of authenticity, Rocco and I have bantered around forever, but I think the premise of your book really speaks to authenticity for males.
Yeah.
And it's to not, or to bastardize the concept is doing males a huge disservice, a huge, for lack of a better phrase, a huge injustice.
Yeah.
Because to me, it sets a tone for conflict.
Yeah.
When masculinity is attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
I think that's why, you know, this book is not a lot of bashing. There's attempted humor some places, but it's really about moving forward and about what we create. But there is a part in there where there's one group of humans I'm pretty tough on, okay? And that group of humans that I'm tough on are the male feminists, you know? Because what they're actually doing is they're denying their own masculinity, and they're denying the masculinity of other people. And what they've done is they've aligned with, you know, all things gynocentric. And the problem is it's completely inauthentic. It's a survival tactic.
Right.
And there's no authenticity in survival, because you will do anything to get out of the grease. You do not give a shit. As long as you come out alive, success. And that's the problem. That's the problem when we're in overwhelm and we're operating from fear. There's no access to authenticity. Authenticity can only occur in a state of courage and above. You know, because it's courageous to be authentic. It's courageous to stand in the face of no agreement. It's courageous to start a business when you are comfortable inside a law firm.
Yeah.
It's courageous to challenge the status quo, or challenge the narrative, or challenge what's ever coming at you. It takes courage. And then what that courage leads to is engagement, and what that engagement leads to is you don't know now, because now now you're in the game. And the beautiful thing about games, the reason we play games, is we don't know what the outcomes are till the end.
Right. Unless you're pirates, you know.
Even last night. So
Yeah.
I will challenge you. See, they show.
You never know.
I'm in the ballpark. The Pirates win. How about
Yeah,
that?
you
Right?
never know.
There we go.
You never know.
Apparently.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You never know.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand the concept. As you were saying that, I was saying that there's so many sides to this.
Oh yeah, man.
It's just nuts, because I have a gay friend, female, and we've been friends for 25 years. And she officially came out when she left her home. She says that we've just really got along. We're different as night and day. But I had a conversation with her. I said, it's really interesting. You know, like, I'm a big, like, unique person, uniqueness. I love authenticity. So you always being who you are is so admirable to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I see things on the news, or I read things about the gay and lesbian community, And she stopped me. She goes, well, that's the problem. She goes, who defines who belongs to what community and why does there need to be a community? That was the answer. And I was like, before I could even say anything, I stepped back and I said, wait a second. That's the problem. The problem is that we're defining her based upon her being, based upon her sexuality. And she doesn't want that.
Right.
Not that there's anything right or wrong with wanting that. I can't speak to that. I'm talking about this person, this conversation. She didn't want that. She didn't define her being based upon her sexuality.
Yeah.
So what kind of asshole am I to just make the assumption that that's the case? Well, I get that because that's how news is ingested to me. She must be in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a white male. I'm an oppressive white male, I guess.
Right.
I'm in a box.
Well, think about from a marketing standpoint.
It's insane.
Well, from a marketing standpoint, though, it's way easier to manage shit if you're putting everyone in boxes.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Right?
But this is a human being you're talking about. This isn't products. You're not making a product that goes send to Walmart for inventory. These are human beings.
Well, right there, I think, is one of the things that is one of the biggest challenges right now. We have gotten into a profound practice of being inhumane to one another. And the first way we become inhumane is we label people.
Well, there's, Dr. Brock was on.
Yeah.
Ruben Brock is an African-American guest and a good friend of mine who comes on. He's a psychology professor. He's just an awesome human being, man. We just get the most amazing conversations. I often say to him, from my viewpoint, sometimes I think we create these inner communities within society, and I'm not always sure that making reference to them all the time helps. And yes, we hear the black community all the time. And he turned me on my heels, and he said something so profound to me. He goes, "Look," he goes, "I understand that." He says the community, in certain circumstances, labeling and putting in boxes isn't good. He says, but conversely, there's comfort in numbers, and there's comfort. There's also comfort in like circumstances, like-minded people, like people with same experiences. And he goes, until you live your life in a way where you have certain kinds of experiences that you can associate with, you won't understand that. And as a white person, I couldn't.
Yeah.
It was a growth moment for me. My point is, I understand why we have groups, clubs, communities. I get that some labels make sense to me. Yeah. But to label and group out of convenience and then mainstream it for a political agenda, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like the NR, if you're like how does the transgender woman who also is a gun enthusiast who happened to vote Republican, but also is pro-choice, where do they fit in?
What box?
What box do they fit in?
Especially if they like burgers, right?
Well, anything. My point is,
I know.
That's the beauty of life, is you can't define people so specifically. And shame on us for some folks where their beliefs on a badge they get behind. There's a litmus test for some people. They want one thing. I am pro-choice, and that dominates my entire life. Okay, you have a right to be that way. Okay, but most people don't live that way. Most people.
But it makes
our viewpoints are all over the board, Rocco.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
We don't follow the Democrat or the Republican platform. It's insanity.
Yeah.
But they live their lives that way, so they want to, or that identity, and they run to the group, they run to be labeled. Some folks, they run to it. There's comfort in it. Yeah. I guess I'm so confused on how it's necessary all the time.
Here's why.
I don't get it.
It makes so. Take two pieces of it. Take three. Politicians, media companies, corporations. Okay, they all have to market to people, right? They all have to get people to support their political agenda, their products, right? So you have now, or the news, the advertising. So now if you put people in boxes and people want to belong and people want to feel comfortable, they want to belong in a box, it makes it easier to market. Now you don't have to market to 26 opinions. You market to one group of people that we believe has a common opinion. and then you box these people in, and then you create this narrative that makes people feel like, well, if I don't belong in that box, what's wrong with me? So like now you have this community, okay, we're the transgender community, or where, you know, the white community, they're black, whatever the case may be, and you tell these people that this community means this, and so then you start getting support around that. Then you get these people that have all different viewpoints, but they feel as an outsider if they don't belong, and it makes it easier for these companies and these media companies and these politicians to market to these people. I could be completely full of shit, but that's the only logical explanation that makes sense to me.
I think that premise, it makes sense. I just don't know, like, that it makes the, again, back to the mechanics of life for the individual, it makes it so much more difficult when you have to then weigh, is my NRA affiliation way more than my my right to eat my like of beef,
right?
Or, you know, the fact that I don't believe in drinking alcohol, does that weigh more than what kind of, like, why?
See, in the world,
why is that any of this shit important?
Right.
Well, in the world of equity, they're all going to be equally important.
No, they're not.
And so what that's going to do is create confusion and more of the overwhelm. It's a circular thing.
And to that point, when people are confused and overwhelmed, now the government makes you feel safe.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. It comes back to, if we make people overwhelmed and afraid, they look to the government to make them feel safe.
Yeah.
That's the majority of people that like comfort, right? And when they're overwhelmed and fearful, they're seeking comfort in the government, in the media companies, and they say, this is how you're safe. Believe us. Buy this. Follow us. That's it. They get them seeking safety. We're fucked.
Well, the job of this show is to solve the world's problems, right?
Yeah, I know.
You know?
We'll eventually solve them.
You know, Einstein
Eventually.
says if there's a problem and you got 60 minutes to do it, and I'm going to spend 55 minutes defining a problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We defined it, definitely.
yeah.
The Manhood Manifesto.
Yeah.
How men must lead at home, at work, and in the public sphere. It's a good read, pal.
Thanks, man.
It's a great book.
I'm always fascinated by authors when I get a chance to sit down with them, just how the whole, lack of a better phrase, mechanics of that spills out.
Yeah.
Did you like it? Did you like the writing process?
I love it, man. I really do. It's something, and it's weird. It's like all this, you spend a lot of time getting ready,
Right.
and then you pump it out. Like, at least I do. That's what I do. I write every day for 2 hours, and then it's done. You know, it takes about 2.5 months.
What was more difficult, getting it all out, or then trying to formulate it in? Because I'm guessing most writers write in spurts, and then you have to reconfigure where it goes where.
No,
or
I do it.
Was it
I do
stream
it
of conscious.
I do it absolutely the opposite way.
Okay.
I create an outline,
Okay.
and then it's a stream of conscious. And I almost go. And this one, I went like almost chapter by chapter.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty organized.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that.
No. Most people don't. Most people don't. That's not how most people. I found out because I've again, talk first, research later, right?
Yeah, right. We're men, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So after I've written a couple books now, I've gone and and met with some authors and how they do it and what their process is.
Right.
Mine's really weird.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
It's a good book, though.
yeah, man. Just please, if people would buy it, because here's the thing about authorship is to get other deals, you got to sell books. So
And it's available everywhere, right?
yeah, it's on
You can
Amazon.
buy
or-
books.
Yeah.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, everywhere. So
Everywhere.
yeah, so I'm this is
Congratulations.
Yeah,
It's a compliment. You're now a published author. You joined Rocco.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like the last one at the table. It's not done yet, but it's going to happen.
It'll be there,
Dude,
man.
it'll be beautiful.
I got way too much shit rolling around in my
I
head.
know,
I'll
man.
get it out,
I'm just
man.
waiting for it.
You know,
Waiting
dude,
for it.
that's a gift of it. Like after you, so this is my second book. My first book was just a download. I mean, it was a download, and I missed the mark on what I wanted to say in the whole thing. But there's a lot of good shit in it, but it's pretty disorganized, and I missed the mark. But what happened was after you do the final edit, you hit send. It's like you're going to walk outside without pants on now, you know, because you put your shit out there, right? So I hit send, and it just was like I had this moment of complete and utter clarity.
That's cool.
You know,
That's very cool.
and
Glad to hear that.
And I had it with this one too, and then I did, you know, after I wrote it, I didn't touch it for like 4 months, and then I read it, and it was like, wow, You know,
I did that.
no, it wasn't that at all. It was like, wow, this is interesting. You know, and it brought back that clarity too. Right. So it's a great way. At least for me, it's a great way to clear the mind.
Okay.
And
no doubt.
You know.
Yeah, Rocco will tell you, I journal. I'm a journaling nut. I've been writing forever.
Yeah.
And so I know the process and how I do it.
Yeah.
But it still seems like a big undertaking. I think
not as big as you think.
organizationally, I think. For
Just
me.
write. Just start. Just start
writing.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Do it.
It's fantastic.
Well, you need a structure.
Yeah.
You know, that's all. You're writing because it's an expression. And so once you get serious and you get clear on what you want to write about, you'll create a structure and it'll just fall into place.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder when you get into the process, like those folks that write fiction and then they have a series? I've done a lot of spy novel series. I've done them. I enjoy them. And I just fascinated by the stream of consciousness, like what it takes to do something like that, to continue the story. And
you know what's really interesting? Out of this book, I don't really like fiction that much, but I read a book called The Overton Window by Glenn Beck, which was a great book. Yeah. And then I read all of Newt Gingrich's.
Yeah.
He writes these great Tom Clancy spy novels, right?
Yeah.
So I've read all of those. And I really loved them. And I don't typically like novels.
Right.
Anyway, a couple weeks after this, not a couple weeks, a couple days after this came out, I had this idea. And I actually have an idea for a novel.
Okay.
And I've been playing with it, and it's actually, I'm fascinated, but I don't know what it's going to turn into. But and I'm not a good writer. The truth is, I'm really not. I'm a good conversationalist. And the book kind of, I think when you read it, it occurs like I'm talking to you versus I'm writing, because I'm not a good writer. And I'm just not.
That's a good book, though.
And so anyway, that's the thing. Yeah, but it's easy to read. You could read the whole thing in like 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all. But yeah, the whole idea of like, I'm just starting to get an idea of like writing a novel, what that would be like, and the
it's got to be a different animal.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
whole different ballgame.
Different level of creativity.
Yeah.
My sincere congratulations, my friend. Did you come back and see me?
Oh, I'd love to, man.
It's a blast.
Yeah. Always fun.
You're right.
I told you,
You're
man.
always right.
Not always.
Hate to admit that, but he's generally always right.
I appreciate that.
No,
man.
dude, I love being here. I love this guy. I don't get to spend much time with him.
Yeah, this was great.
Buy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, buy the damn book,
Amazon.
please. Yeah, please.
Manhood Manifesto.
Buy the damn book. And if you don't like it, if you
lump it.
No. If you don't buy it, I'll buy it back from you, for heaven's sakes.
There you go.
There you go.
Guarantee.
Yeah.
All right, friends.
All right.
Thank you, man.
All right,
Thank you, man.
All right. Have a
Thank
truly
you.
safe trip back.
I will.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Friends,
Take care.
we're out.
Yeah, bye.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.